Please join me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Where did that guy who's quitting go?
I know, he was here. He
Call
left.
them quitters. All right, this is a work session, so we're not going to be taking any votes today. We're going to just have a good time working in this session. So let's start with item 2.1, License Centers Update. Mr. Frischman.
Morning, Mr. Chair and board members. Dave Frischman, Property and Finance Director. Get an update today on our license centers. And so a couple things, just going to run through some numbers. Take a look at our legislative reminder, the board about the legislative priority. Focus a couple things on customer service and our buildings, and then open it up for any questions or direction from the board. Just a reminder, we have 2 license centers the county operates. The Chaska License Center, which we share the first level with an exam station, the state of Minnesota exam station where they do driver's licenses and the commercial driver's license road tests. Then the Chanhassen, technically it's called the Service Center because the passports that we process, passport applications we process at Chanhassen are not considered licensed, so we have a broader name, Service Center. And it's a 2-story building, and we share the second floor with the Health and Human Services, their child and family. In terms of, just take a quick look at our a budget overview. We went through this last year as part of our 2025 budget exercise, focus on service delivery. We came up with 3 buckets of services that with the county delivers: a mandated service, which obviously required by law or regulation. That's where the majority of our services are. Then we have non-mandated services. That's a discretionary service that we provide. And then I'm splitting this out into most of those non-mandated services, those discretionary services are non-essential, considered non-essential, parks, libraries, and other things like that. And then there is the essential service, which is where the license center. So it is discretionary, but it is considered an essential service. We were allowed to open up during COVID as an example, along with the government center, because it was considered an essential service. You know, getting your driver's license or renewing your driver's license, transferring a title, applying for a passport, those are all considered essential services. And then the third bucket, just it was the operations overhead, another essential management support for admin finance. So the license centers today is under discretionary, but considered essential services. 10-year combined operations, this is for both locations. This is becoming one of my top 5 favorite slides to keep updated. There's a lot of information here, but it tells a really good story about how starting back in 2016, the surplus was close to $400,000. We had 132,000 transactions. And I consider those this was normal operations. This is the way the license center had been operating for a number of years. It is reflected in the 2016. And then 2017, things changed, and they changed quickly. The state they got rid of the green screens, and they brought in MinLars, which was just a disaster of software. It was really hard for our staff to actually process the transactions. It was really hard on the customers because it was unreliable, and it would go down. It was really bad. You can see we had it for 3 years until they finally got MinDrive, which is actually fairly good software. We had some bugs at first, but it was well written, and the state was really responsive. And it's actually working fairly well now, knock on wood, MinDrive. But then back to 2017, there was a workload shift, and up until that point, the state staff had been doing things on the back end, and that got shifted to county staff or city staff that were processing on the front end. So we got a lot of extra work on the front end. Didn't get any more money for it. The state still kept the same amount that they had been. The split on the transaction fee was still the same, even though they were doing a lot less work and we were doing a lot more. And And then Real ID came the next year, which was the federal driver's license, which had a lot more workforce once again, a lot more documentation, a lot of questions, and all this led to significant staff turnover. And in addition, we added staff because we had long lines, we had a lot of questions, we had a lot of complaints. So we added 2 specialists in 2017, we had 2 assistants in 2019. And then COVID hit, right, in 2020. We went down to 75,000 transactions. We were closed for part of it, immediately, and then we were able to open up because, as I said, it was an essential service. We did offset that first year with federal COVID money, 350,000, because it was unexpected, the financial impact. Since then we've been back to a deficit, as you can see in that column of red. But those have been more. We know what we expect to have a deficit, so it was easier to budget for. But that first year that took us by surprise. So we did take that federal COVID money. Then we went to appointment only, no walk-ins. So you can still see the transactions were down. The second quarter of 2022, we were finally fully open again. We still had staff turnover, but at that point we had staff that understood MinDrive. And they were very good at it, and they were very accurate, and they're very fast. And so other organizations heard about that, so they started stealing our employees. Scott County took 3 of them. A couple cities took a couple others because we had staff that knew how to use MinDrive and were very good at it. We weren't competitive with our wages. So we worked with the union, we worked with the county board, worked with the county administrator and ER, made a wage adjustment, which has really helped stabilize our staffing. We still have some turnover, but it's more of a normal type of turnover. But what we realized is because the job has become so much harder and more requirements, that it takes longer to get those staff up and trained up so that they're productive and they're accurately and efficiently processing the applications. So we did add a training coordinator, which was a really strategic move because we shortened the ramp up for our new staff to be able to start working on their own. We put in a daily goal of 24 transactions, which really helped all our staff focus on a goal. A number of our staff are consistently above that. Some of the newer ones are working towards that, but it was really helpful to actually have an actual goal. And you can see in 2024, we had legislative fee increases, which that really helped. We thought we had kind of turned the corner, and we were heading towards going back to at least a break even. But then we had some additional wage increases, health insurance in 2026. We had some people that run single insurance, but the health insurance plan was so attractive, they switched, which cost us a lot of money. That happened throughout the county. Where new employees were taking the family insurance because it was more competitive, but that increased our costs. We just happened to see it more in our license centers because we keep this as a separate entity, so we can see the numbers more. But that put us back negative. The 2026 budget, that's what the B stands for. The A's are all actual. The B's budget close to 500,000. And then 2020, our projection for 2026 is closer to 350,000, which is we're changing our goal, our daily goal, trying to get 26 transactions. We did put that coordinator; it's a vacant position. We put that on hold because of the financial numbers. So we're just kind of that's why we're able to going to have a better year than what we budgeted for. So those are the numbers. Any questions off the bat? Yep.
Dave, did the passport revenues associated with the government center roll into these numbers, or are those separate?
Those are separate.
And then how many full-time equivalents do we have that staff both of our?
11 and 3, 10. I'd say 20. Commissioner, I'd say 25.
Okay, and that they're contained within the 2 buildings?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then in the duration of all this information, 2016 through 2026, we haven't operated on nights and weekends, right? We made that strategic decision from a hiring perspective. So all this reflects that no nights and no weekends.
That's correct.
And then we're at max capacity, right? Meaning we can't add another bay. As we grow, we need to figure out more capacity.
Yeah, Commissioner, that's true for Chaska. We have all full-time staff, in all of the state workstations. In Chanhassen, we have some part-time positions in some of those stations. So, there's some growth still in Chanhassen because those part-time positions could be converted to full-time positions.
But is it fair to say that we're tapped out on capacity?
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
either need to have another location, we'd have to figure out a way to get even more efficient, or we'd have to expand a facility. Is that fair?
Yeah, yep.
I can't see it in here, but I know over time that people have shifted from doing their tabs in person. I think it was like in 2020, maybe. You could start getting them online and mailed to your house. Do we know what the trends are of how many people we anticipate, say, in the next 5 years will get their tabs online? I know it's a profit source for us. We get paid so much money. It's an easy one, right? Grab your tabs, get your $6 or whatever it is. But I see that going away in the next 5 years, and I don't see the state government. They're always lagging, and it's never in our favor, but I don't see them compensating us more in terms of tabs. So we'll have to make up that someplace else to even try and get to break even. Do we have any idea the projections of tabs? I even know that there's vending machines at grocery stores now that do that.
Yeah, Commissioner Uderman, we have seen the trend. We've been watching the trend as people have gone online. A lot of people went online and during COVID and didn't come back. And there are kiosks in grocery stores, and we support that overall. We think it's a good thing for customers to have those options, those more convenient options. But it is taking away some easy revenue and some easy transactions for us. It's part of why we haven't gotten back to that 132,000. I think in that 132,000 was a fair number of easy drive-through transactions related to the tab renewals. So we're watching it, and we haven't seen any projections or anything, but we think over time it's going to continue because it is convenient. Once people do it, they come back. We still get a lot of people that come back and want to get their tabs renewed with us because they can get them in their hands. They don't have to wait for it to come through the mail. So yeah, I think there'll always be some, but yeah, we think the trend's going to be continued to decrease over time.
3 more things. One, the people that are employed, do they get their paychecks from the county, the state, or somewhere else?
Our employees get paid from the county.
Okay. And then I love the metric of 24 transactions, pushing on 26 transactions per person. I guess the question is, do we have any other metrics that we look at? Because average wait time could be one based on the complexities. A survey feedback of how we're doing, because the Chaska DMV sits in the district that I represent, and I know over half the people they serve are from outside of Carver County. We'll get to that slide in a minute. But it pains me when I'm at a softball game or a basketball game and somebody's like, I couldn't get my kid in for their driver's license test. And it's not worth the conversation to say, well, there's the driver's side and then there's our side. And I know we cleaned it up so that if you do your driver's test, you can walk right over there and get your thing on the same day, which is not well known. But I love it when kids take their picture in front of that as a passage of time in part of Carver County. Is there any way for us to know how many kids have to go outside of Carver County to get their driver's tests?
Yeah, the state might have, Commissioner, that they might have that information. I should point out that the driver's test people, those are state employees. They are getting their check from the state. It's just a partnership between the two of us. But yeah, no, I don't have that data.
And then the last thing was you talk about full-time equivalents and shifts and whatnot. You mentioned that that sometimes they're operated by cities. What are some of the cities that operate DMVs?
Actually, I have a slide on that
Okay, got
later.
it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so just a reminder, the county, the commissioners, about our legislative priority related to the DMV, enhance the long-term financial sustainability. The 3 that we picked, they're all from state legislative hired experts that came in and studied all these issues related to our DMVs and our license centers. And this is back in 2022. There's a King report, and they recommended 25 to 50% of the filing fees for mail-in and online transactions should be shared with the local deputy registrars. That would be awesome. We're still waiting for that to happen. The part of the logic to it is the state gets the easy transactions, right? The people can do it online, people can mail it in. What that means then is the people that it's more complicated, not able to do it, they come in, and so we shift over time, and we're getting the harder transactions, the more complicated ones, and the state's getting the easy ones, and they're getting the filing fee from the easy ones. There's a second recommendation from a second report. This was a 2024 Barry Dunn report, and on page 37, they recommended that they get rid of, right now, the legislature, I think they thought they were doing us a favor by adding a $1 service fee for anybody to tab renewal in person, but a number of customers looked at that as more of a penalty. So it's actually $1. I don't want to advertise this, but it's $1 cheaper to, they'll see it on their thing, but it's $1 cheaper to do it by mail or online electronically. You can save $1. So it creates an incentive for people not to go to the do it in person at either one of the county facilities. And the recommendation in this report was to add a $1 convenience fee for both the mail in as well as the online, and then take that $1 and share it, give it back to all the local deputy registrars. It's a simplified version of revenue sharing, online revenue sharing. I think it's a great idea. So that's one of our priorities, is to get rid of the penalty or the additional cost for doing it in person. And then the last one is more of a general, big picture, that the 2024 Barry Dunn report had a number of long-term recommendations that the legislature should consider to enhance the long-term financial sustainability of our DMVs. So in terms of customer service, real quick, we do have a new federal it's an online renewal for passports. It's the federal government came up with it, and it's really slick. You can go, if you qualify, you can renew your passport. You know, they last for 10 years. You can renew it online, and you just click boxes. The only tricky thing is you got to get a picture in there. And I did it myself, my wife and I, and you got to have the right distance, you got the right lighting, you have the right background. It can be a pain. We figured out how to do it with our existing cameras at the Chanhassen License Center. And then we'll email you the picture so you can drag and drop right into the application. It's a really slick, convenient process for people. And those people wouldn't be our customers, because when you do it online, when you do a renewal, you don't actually come and actually work through the local office. You only do that when it's a first-time renewal or a first-time application for a passport or for a child. So these are new customers for us, and now we're providing a really slick service for them. We've also got a QR code at the Chanhassen License Center, so people are able to see that QR code, and from their phone they can check themselves in, which has allowed us now. We used to have a greeter that would greet everybody. We no longer call it the greeter. We now call it the information desk, because people are able to just check in from their phone automatically without having to go over there. So that's a real convenience. I watched one time, a kid came in, he was talking on his phone, and he saw the QR code. He clicked it, got himself in line, went back to talking, watched the screen inside. His name popped up, sat down, and never talked to anybody. He got right in line. So it really works well. And we're hoping it's just going to streamline the process for our customers. They're not going to talk to anybody. They can just get right in line and then get called up when it's their turn.
He did well. How about his parents?
Yeah, no comment. I'm at that age. And then on our website, we added customer queues for Chanhassen and Chaska. These are live queues, so people can see if there's 20 people in line at Chanhassen and only 2 at Chaska. If they have the ability, they can just go to Chaska. Or if there's 20 at both and they don't want to wait, they can just wait till another day. Just watch those queues, and then when they're, it's a shorter one, then they're able to go and get in line. So we think that's another customer service improvement that we implemented for this year. A zip code survey, Commissioner Whitmer referred to this. We did this during COVID, and the results were kind of similar, but we thought they might have been skewed because of COVID. So let's do it. So we did. Actually, there's oh, there it is. Okay, so we did this in February. Just took a week, the middle of February, and we had over 1,200 customers, and we just tracked their zip codes. Where do they come from? And you can see in Chanhassen, 52% came from Hennepin, and then the other one that surprised me was the overall in Carver combined at 49% but a large number from Hennepin. Scott County sends a lot of people come over to Chaska. But then you can see the overall impact then of the people. And there is the economic impact from both Chaska, from this increased traffic, from people coming from outside of the county, coming into the cities. So just a quick update on where our customers are coming from.
Dave, I hear a lot about economic impact for buildings and different things, and maybe it's not a fair question for you. But have we ever qualified that? Is it $3 per visit because 1 out of 3 people are going to go to size and spend $15? Is it?
Yeah.
Like, how do we qualify?
Commissioner, those are numbers that like marketing people and not CPAs typically don't get into those numbers too often.
Yeah.
But I think people probably could make some estimates, but I haven't seen any. I haven't done any of that myself. But
I mean, I think about it, and if we're losing $500,000 a year, and that's without capital expense, and if we're serving less than half of
350.
Well, okay. All right, if I saw 497, and I know we have to replace
Yeah.
roofs, and I know
Fair enough.
buildings age, and I know there's parking lots, and I know there's all those things. And I look at this and say, 51% of the people we serve are not from our county. I'd imagine, in fairness, the people on the western side of the county don't utilize our DMVs. They probably go to McLeod. Maybe they go to the Waconia one. I don't know. But our residents are subsidizing $500,000, arguably $1 million if you take, if we were 100% of the pie, and we can't prioritize them. We can't say, the mayor or Matt or me or whatever comes in line. We can't put the person from Carver County first in the line. We have to serve all equally. And so we are subsidizing at least $500,000 without capital expense, without operating costs. I mean, it might cost us $1.5 million a year to run a DMV. And so we have to be prudent about this. And so, would somebody absorb $200,000 loss to keep a DMV in a city? Would they absorb a $500,000 loss? And I think when it's, when we're making money or when it's a few percentage points, $1,000, $10,000, maybe even $50,000, it's not worth the decision. But when we creep into a $250,000 plus loss a year, and if we had capital expense, we're looking at potential $20 million loss over 10 years for more capacity. These have to be prudent decisions that we look at. And I think the data sings right here. It shows some of the things we have to look at.
Would that be 40 million over 20 years?
I know.
How much over 30? And, Commissioner Erman, we use this word loss when, I know for my entire public career, the idea that the government has profits or loss is kind of a falsehood. I think what this comes down to is what service do we want to provide? And our fight is really with the state. And when I was a legislator, this was the same fight. They have never quite brought it all up. But we are not truly a business. As I've said here before, our sales team at this business is the sheriff and the jail. And if you don't want to buy our product, come over here and we'll chat about whether you want to buy our product or not. Property taxes. So, I am talking to the city of Chanhassen. The statistic, 52%. Downtown Chanhassen is western Eden Prairie's downtown, where Mr. Frischman lives nearby. Eat close but no cigar, Dave. You could enjoy. You need to attain Carver County. And so I'm not. I think the day we opened that, I don't think you were here. Maybe it was Mr. Lundgren but we knew with Hennepin. I think we opened Chanhassen, but Eden Prairie was still open. You're nodding like.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
And maybe we helped put it out of business because they must have had a dramatic drop. But I can tell you by that statistic that Chanhassen businesses probably appreciate the wider scope than limiting just to Chanhassen or Carver County residents. So the proximity, when Hennepin County banned smoking in bars and we didn't, the Chanhassen Legion had 50% increase daily in business. So anyway, I thought it,
Commissioner Workman, Chair Workman.
Commissioner.
May I make a comment about that as well? Thank you for bringing it up. I do think when I broached this subject with constituents, their thought is, does government make money? We don't. We are not a moneymaker, and some people get offended when, is the service valuable or not? And that's what we need to talk about. Government is in the business of doing things that other organizations cannot do effectively. I also want to think about, recently we had a conversation about HCMC, or Hennepin Health. And that organization, we as a board supported additional resources to keep HCMC afloat. And in that conversation, we learned just how many people are served by HCMC outside of Hennepin County. And I'm grateful for that. They're a level 1 trauma center, they're a burn center. And I hope that if my child or anyone in this room's child has to go to HCMC for whatever reason, they don't prioritize Hennepin County residents first. I think this conversation about where our people are coming from is about being good neighbors. And I'm grateful that those people from Hennepin County feel like they can come to Carver County, use our services, go to our businesses. It's about being good neighbors. And that's what I want Carver County to be known for.
Mr. Chair,
Sherman.
I excel more in making factual arguments than emotional arguments. I'll acknowledge that. But I think that we're conflating a lot of things. I want us to be able to serve our residents. We've traditionally had a lot of services that are here. We have not traditionally had a historic 8% tax increase. We have not had increased number, at least for me, I don't know about you guys, but of conversations about people that are able to leave Minnesota and Carver County and the unaffordability of being here, whether it's a first-time home buyer, whether it's my kids that are looking to be here. Everybody knows the reason I do this is because my 6 and 10-year-old in 20 years, I want them to be able to choose to live in Chaska. I want them to be able to choose to live in Carver County. But to say things like we don't make money, we don't have to go any further than 2019 when it comes to the conversation at task, which is the DMV. And we made money in 2019. We made money in 18, 17, 16. And that money was brought into a larger budget to defray taxes, to lower those tax rates. And in 2020, that changed. And so we can say all day long that we don't make money. There are pockets that we do. There are very few of them. This is one of them. We can also say that, guess what? What our peers are talking about, a 10 to 12% levy increase on the county line. These are peers in the county. Peers of ours in other counties. We can say that's not going to happen, put our head in the sand and not talk about it. Or we can say, guess what? We cannot continue to pass along 8, 9, 10, 12% increases to taxpayers on the regular. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn to say this board has traditionally been conservative. Most people up here have claimed to be Republicans. And at a time when all these shifts are coming our way, you know, what happened to the let's lower our tax red meat stuff, right? And I say, guess what? I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. There's people that are not able to afford to live in Carver County today that 5 years ago could have lived here. We are on a crash course that a first-time school teacher, a sheriff's deputy, or somebody that's new in their career can't afford to live here. And I think you should see a lot of nods up here. 2 people on here have served on the CDA. They see it firsthand. 20 years ago, it cost the equivalent of 6 times the salary of a first-time teacher to be a median house value. Now that's 9x. If we look at the trends of the last 3 years, that's 18x in 20 years. It's unaffordable. It's not when you and your family bought houses. I think my first house was 3 times my salary. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about crazy things happening, right? And so this is one of those areas that could save us on average, $2+ million a year to look at. Do I think the DMV should go away? No, I've proposed 3 different options. 1, offer it to the private market, which we'll get to, right? We have Excelsior and Waconia and others that operate privately and seem to do it just fine. If that doesn't work and somebody doesn't want to pull an RFP on it, then we should look at who benefits the most. And Tom, you made a great point. The cities benefit the most. That's why I'm asking economically, is that a place where the cities would want to take it on? It's to their great benefit. It's to the benefit of Chanhassen, it's to the benefit of Chaska. If that doesn't work, let's call the governor and say, hey, in the next 2 years, we may be out of this business, but go ahead and take over our building and our staff and take care of them. And maybe we could press that conversation. It was over 10 years ago that Eden Prairie said, we're out of this business. And in that press release, they said, we would expect to lose $300,000 this year. And I think it was a friend of yours, Tom. I think they actually worked here at Carver County that was quoted in the statement that says that they're going to lose $300,000. And at the same time, we knew that we were facing the same stuff. And in their press release, they said, go to Chaska, go to Chan. We're losing money, but you can go to our neighbors who they can now lose money for us. And so we can have a rhetorical conversation, we can have an emotional conversation, or we can look at the math and say it's just enough. And this is one of those areas, if we want to do so, we can do something about that tax rate. Otherwise, I fear that we're going to pop another 8 to 12%, and we're going to price even more people out of living in Carver County and in Chaska. And so let's either have the conversation or not, but we did make money. We made money, a lot of money, in 2016. And if we're not making $400,000 like we did in 16, we have to cover it, just like our jail. At one time, we made $1 million in the ICE contract in our jail. We don't have an ICE contract now. We had to absorb that somewhere, and we had to absorb that in tax rate, and we're seeing that in our taxes right now. So those are my comments, and I know we have a few more slides to get through, but there's pathways to continue to have a DMV in Carver County without losing this much money. So,
Well, Commissioner Uterman, number one, we hear about your young children being able to afford a house 15, 20 years down the road. That is emotional. That is
No, it's
intended
fact.
to be emotional.
it's not,
And talking about 6X, 9X, 10 years out, 20 years out, if you got a life insurance policy run today, any investment run today, 10 years out, it will be wrong, 100% wrong. And so I appreciate you trying to make the issue bigger with the outlook. That's why earlier I said, well, in 20 years, we'll have 40 million. And what would it be in 30? $6 trillion somewhere down the road. We'd be losing money. But again, I've been around a long time, 40 years, and I've heard about the sheriff's deputy and the nurse and the teacher, none of who can ever be able to afford houses, and they magically somehow do. In fact, most of my law enforcement friends have 2 houses. So something's going on, and something happens. I know that my valuation on my house dipped a hair. I know that reading the Wall Street Journal, houses, buyers are back to having a little more power, and the market is getting soft. And so those things happen, and nothing happens straight up like a rocket. I think this board, the issue is, and many of us are going to be knocking on doors, our constituent doors here soon. It's an election year. And we'll be asking them, do you find this service to be valuable? Or where are they going to go? I guess, and Dave, I don't know if you got the slide, what the private market is doing in Waconia or Excelsior or anywhere else. I know they probably cherry pick stuff. Maybe they don't do it all, but where will my constituents, well, mine are probably going to still have a license center. Where will the Chaska residents get a title transfer, for example, and take care of that stuff? Maybe I can do it. I don't think I do title transfers so rarely, I goof it up every time. I don't sign anything on that piece of fancy green paper until I'm down in front of a professional at Chanhassen telling me exactly what I should do, because it's a mess. I blame the state. So, is this something that my constituents are going to tell me they want, don't care, or other? I'm going to know very soon, and I'm taking it to the city of Chan. You want to keep that open? I bet you the chamber wants me to keep it open, but that isn't a reason. So. Again, going out and making 1 year's losses turn into 10 or 20 is an unrealistic way, I believe. That's emotional. That's a way to make it a little bit bigger and scarier. But But this is a good exercise. This would be a great exercise for just about everything we do. And we're going to talk about libraries. And so that's all I got.
Yeah, I do have a slide towards the end, and we get into the private and other options and stuff, so we can have a take a pause. There's a couple slides on buildings and numbers, and then we can circle back to that, and we can continue or we can move on. So as I mentioned, the buildings, these are operating costs for both Chaska and Chan. I did highlight that we are sharing the space in both cases. You can see the utilities and the custodial stuff. Mainly the Chanhassen is a two-story building, so it's twice as big, over twice as big, so you can see the costs reflect that, the larger building. But these are not included in those numbers that I was showing. These are all facilities numbers, and we budget so that if we were to close down, hypothetically close it down, we'd still have that building. We'd probably put somebody else in there. We'd still have these costs. Nick, our administrative assistant, or our deputy county administrator, oversees these costs with facilities. So that's why we just budget for these in separate places. Looking ahead to our capital projects, these are the bigger, more one-time kind of things. Recalking windows, that's actually a county-wide project, and the Chaska and Chan are included in that. Parking lot mill and overlay, that's actually coordinated with our Public Works. When they're doing a road project nearby, they're gonna come in and do that. The one big one, the bus drop-off, more parking, to be determined. There's a conflict because we have buses that are coming through our Chan License Center, dropping kids off to go up on that second floor and then picking them up. And it's becoming more and more of a conflict. So we're working with our facilities. We talked to the city about expanding the parking, maybe coming up with a better process where that bus could go. All stuff that we're looking at, those are for 2027. I imagine will be in our attachment E request for those. And the roof replacements, those are other big ticket items. That's actually part of facilities. They have a 20-year plan to replace all the roofs throughout the county. We don't have that all financed yet, all funded. Still working on how to come up with those. There's some big dollars in there, but those buildings are included in facilities overall operations and maintenance plan. And then here's the slide I mentioned. Just to clarify with the board, the county is not required to operate a DMV. All of our neighboring counties are operating a DMV, and I do have a chart, a map that shows that. Cities can operate a DMV, the Prior Lake, Minnetonka, Wayzata, where I came from. We all ran DMVs there. And the private limited service DMV is in Waconia. It is limited service. They don't do driver's license. Just think they don't have the camera there. They'll do a title transfer. They'll do tab renewals, but they don't do the driver's license. They're not dealing with real ID. They're not dealing with the workload shift that we talked about. Limited involvement with MinLars and MinDrive. And that I didn't know this, but I learned this, is a private can sell to another private, which has happened in Waconia since I've been here, but they're not allowed to sell it to a city or a county. Just like the city is not allowed, or a county is not allowed to sell it or do anything with it. We get an appointment from the commissioner, Minnesota commissioner. We apply for that to become a local deputy registrar. That appointment is ours, and we can't do anything with it. We could do as Eden Prairie did and said Hennepin County did in Eden Prairie. We don't want to operate that anymore. We'd go out of business. But there's no ability for us to do anything with our appointment. It's ours, and all we can do is give it up. We can continue it or we can give it up. Those are really the two choices.
Dave, if a private DMV wants to sell to another private but doesn't have a buyer, does it just lose its license then?
If they can't find a buyer, then yeah, they either stay in business or they go out of business. Yeah, they have the ability to sell to a private. They can't sell it to.
But then that license disappears then.
Yeah, it would go away. Yeah, it would just close down. I mean, they want to get out. They'd either try and sell it. If they couldn't sell it, then they'd just close their operation. Similar to what Hennepin County did with Eden Prairie. And they did it, as I understand it, they wanted to expand their library. They especially since the services were available to Eden Prairie residents in Hennepin or in Carver County. Hennepin County decided we're going to take that space and make a larger library. And yeah, that's part of the decision for that process. And then here's the map I mentioned. So you can see both Chanhassen and Chaska are on the eastern side of Carver County. There is the Waconia limited office, in the center of the county, and then you can see the neighboring counties provide, different services, and a number of cities also provide that service. So with that, any further board questions, direction, or comments?
Do you have any estimates on cost of expansion, either the existing facilities or new? I mean, we have to plan for the fact that we're the fastest growing county in the state. You mentioned that Chaska is up against space limitations for new capacity. We have a lot of first generation drivers that are here that they take more time to process through. So what's the plan for if we stay in this business ourselves for expansion and maybe some cost estimates?
Right now, I'm focused on the $82 million government center building here, making sure we get money for that. Then there's a couple other buildings that are our priorities, buildings that we have that we need to either renovate or move on. So it's really not in the board strategic plan. It's not on my personal list of doing that. Our wait times are, they're up and down. But we're managing it. We're providing really good customer service. So I think for the near term, I think we have no plans for expansion. So I don't have any. I don't really have any. I don't have a good answer for your question about when we do it or how much it would be. If that becomes a priority for the board, then we'd start looking into it.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Ramsey.
Good discussion about the service element. That really is at the heart of our budget, of course. And I did send an email earlier letting you know we're going to renew the effort that I thought was really helpful from a budgetary standpoint. And beyond that, even the discretion, the non-mandated versus mandated service list. We'll update that for you. But this is at the heart of it, right? Mm-hmm. And the timing is always important. And I think it's ideal to put this on the agenda with the library because they're literally connected. You'll see that same parcel, not directly connected, but the same parcel, right? So it would be good to know if the board is interested in, the majority of the board is interested in changing direction on this service sooner rather than later. Because as you'll see in the Chaska presentation, they're gearing up, ready to go, and I appreciate the invite to have us come along. I think that's really critical. But they're going and laying it out. I haven't seen we struggle with a site plan, so there hasn't been a lot of detail work, obviously. But again, back to the issue to me is the majority of the board wants to consider getting out of this business. We need to know that now versus later. So, Mr. Chair, with that, I give that back to you.
Okay. Are we at the end?
Yeah, of this one, and then we'll get into the last
Well,
one.
we have some interested people in the room. Maybe they'd like to give us their input. Dave, great job.
All right, thank you, Mr.
And,
Chair. board members.
Mr. Chair, before, might I add, so let's say, since we have the city of Chaska in the room, let's say the city of Chaska, takes over the license center. Would there be taxpayer costs related to that? I mean, so basically we would, instead of saving the taxpayer money, we would just be moving it to the city of Chaska. They would increase their taxes.
Yeah, I'd have to think about that, but I can't think any like there'd be one-time costs and stuff, but in terms of the operations, everything would just shift, I guess.
Right.
Maybe they're more efficient than we are, and they could do it better. I know Matt's pretty good at what he does, his job. So
Well, he
guys
is.
could-
He is pretty good at what he does.
Now you're heading down the wrong path, Dave.
Well, Dave, prudent conversation, of course, with the people at Chaska, and you would get savings if it was the same building to operate two separate buildings versus one, there could be savings on that regard. I also think it's prudent because it really comes down to capacity. We will need more capacity if we continue to be in this business. And if it's going to happen, it's a good timely conversation, because if you knock out a wall and add, a couple thousand square foot to operate at Chaska, you're going to put pressure on the building plan of the library, which I think it's already high pressure with parking and all these other things. Like, we don't have the luxury of just closing our eyes and not think that 5 and 10 years from now doesn't happen. There will be more growth. Chaska will be nearly grown out. Another 10,000 population planned in Carver in the next 3 to 8 years if they build their 3,500 proposed houses. Like, these are things that we know. These are factors that we know. If we want to be in the business, my suggestion is we go out for an RFP and see if there's a third party that wants to take these on. I know many people on this board have said, if somebody else can do this, let them do it. The government doesn't need to. And so if that's the case, I don't know why we wouldn't go out and see if there's an RFP to be had. I think that other people could bid on it. We could structure it such that could be even the folks in Waconia, the people in Wayzata, the people in Excelsior. Maybe they have some synergies that they could deliver their secret sauce, because I don't think they'd be in the business taking a loss. Or maybe that will help us discover that their viability isn't clear. If Chaska wanted to take it over, I don't think there's anybody on this board that would have any angst in making that happen. And it could operate seamlessly in the building that they would own, that being the library, with being able to master plan that whole city block versus separately. I think the reality is nobody wants to touch a loss. And as much as we want to consider this pipe dream that we're going to get back to break even, 7 consecutive years of loss, and that's not even fully loaded loss, nearly $500,000 a year, isn't going away. It's going to go in the wrong direction. And we as a board will have to face if we're going to have lower service levels, or if we're going to invest in physical facilities, which, to your point, we don't have that planned. That's a lot of money. I mean, Chaska's just going through that as well. They've done a phenomenal job of articulating the tax increase the last 5 years to build a lot of new buildings that have been deferred, and they're probably going to be set for the next 25 plus years, right? We'll hear that more about the library. We need to do the same on the DMV. If we're going to be in the business, we should plan for expansion and service level at or better than where we're at right now. Or we could use this as an opportunity to offer it to the third party, to Chaska if they wanted to take it on, or to let the state know maybe this needs to be theirs again. So I do think that we should have services for our community. I think it's a lot easier when you're making a surplus. I think it's a harder conversation when you're not, but we have some options on the table that could both keep it in here and stop the loss. So I would say that we go out for RFP and also offer it to anybody that would want to take it on, Chaska or Chanhassen, to operate themselves.
Well, and to that, Dave, we would need to ask ourselves the question, what happens if that service ceases to exist? What do we suppose, or where would they, so then our constituents would have to drive into Hennepin County perhaps, or elsewhere, or, so what does that look like? That's a hypothetical that you don't need to answer, and again, knocking on doors, that's what we're going to find out. Well, you could go over to Edina, and I really like getting on Crosstown Highway. Our legislator told we're not fixing it. So I just wanted to add that on to the end. What if there's nothing? I'm assuming the state of Minnesota would still be here somewhere for driver's license if we got out of the business?
Yeah, it's another hypothetical, Mr. Chair. We do have an agreement with them, a partnership with them in that building. So to the extent that building wasn't there, or we got out half, they potentially would do something. But yeah, they have an interest in this area. They do have a lot of staff that come in, and actually, our Chaska facility is a satellite location for some of their staff that go out to the farther west for 2 days every week and provide the driver's tests and that. So they're kind of based here, but then they have these satellite stuff. So they definitely have a presence here. They'd want to maintain that, but how that would be structured, I'm not sure. I do have one more comment that I didn't think of about in terms of expansion. I do think the actual zip code survey that we did actually creates a fair amount of potential future expansion, because if it gets so crowded in Chan and Chaska, that we're going to stop attracting people from other counties potentially, right? So they won't come, and then that'll create more space for the Carver County residents. So I do think they're coming because we're very good, we're are very accurate. They get really good service. They get really good answers to their questions. That's what's drawing them. And if that stops because we're too busy and we got too long of lines and they can't get all that, then they'll go someplace else. So I think it's actually a good thing, but I do think there's opportunities for us to grow right here within Carver County, just by having the residents that aren't in Carver County, may not drive here, may not drive as far to come here. They may just stay in their own county.
I just want to say I don't agree with that logic. Let's make it so that people don't want to come.
I'm not saying make it.
I want-
I'm saying if we get worried about expansion and we don't, and we're too big and we're busting at the seams and we got long lines, right? Then some people that are driving away aren't going to come here anymore. And then that'll allow us to continue to provide services to the
Yeah.
county customers.
Some people find that happening now. I think if we're going to be in the business, it's for our residents. I think it's so that the kids can get their driver's license and they can have the service close by. And so I think you just made the own point. We have constrained a supply right now. We need to have capacity to serve it, or we're going to have to make this decision now, or we're going to have to make it in the future. We're growing. There's going to be more demand on our DMVs.
Chair Workman, I apologize. I did want to hear from the city of Chaska. on
Yes,
their
Madam
thoughts.
Mayor, are you going to give us a chat, or is it Matt or Deb Barber? Are you going to talk about this?
Just no.
I think the deputy in the back, he'll.
Mr.
Give
Chair,
us-
not to go, to talk about who wants to talk. I got a question for you, Dave. If an RFP went out, would the state partner with a private, or does it have to be a municipal, a city or a state? If we had the DMV in Waconia, one said the RFP, yes, we want to do this, would the state move there? And why does the state come to Chaska and not Chanhassen?
I'm not sure the history of the state coming to.
Do you know of
Chaska.
any?
They
Partner with private?
What's that?
Do you know of any of the states that, the state, Minnesota, does it partner with a private anywhere to give driver's licenses? Because I
You
don't
mean
know.
the road test, the road part?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. That's a service that they've been trying to consolidate. Egan and Plymouth have the big state exam sites. They have those throughout the state, and they have different arrangements with them. The state being in Chaska that's been there for a long time. My understanding kind of predates me. The private, those are like in Waconia and different places. We could get a private in farther out west. We could get a private anywhere that whoever wants to open that business, they go to the state just like we would. They apply, and then they become a local deputy registrar. The state does restrict, a geographic area, and they won't put a private right next to a public. They won't put public, right next to each other, too closely. They make sure, like even when we decided to expand to Chan, that went to the state and said, we want to open another facility in Chanhassen, and they ran through the population numbers and looked at said, oh yeah, we won't be taking too many customers from other places. Then actually I think they ask the other neighboring, is this going to bother you guys, and you can object and stuff. So it's a whole process that the state goes through when they're opening up those facilities. But as we've been discussing, I'm not aware of anybody opening any DMVs lately. The more common thing is they're closing, right? They're closing in different places, or they're limiting their services. City of Richfield is not doing driver's licenses anymore. City of Bloomington's talking about doing it. They're cutting back. Outstate, they're actually just closing offices because of the financial impact that we're having, and that's what's driving. That's what drove the state to hire those independent experts to come in and do the King report and then do the Barry Dunn report. They're trying to get their hands around this. What's the best way to provide this service to our customers? Where should the fees be based, and all those kind of issues.
I was going to add to that same conversation with the RFP. I think the fundamental challenge is that the privates are not going to provide the same services. If you look at Waconia, for example, they don't have the complex title transactions. Why? Because they take a lot of time, right? So if we go out for an RFP, what private entity is going to want to come in? Maybe they become more efficient, but they're not going to want to lose money, right? So I think the fundamental problem is at the state and federal level. Another great example where we're subsidizing and backfilling because the state hasn't provided enough revenue. And again, this is a great example because it's essential, it's required, right? Federal government says you must have a passport to do certain things, somebody must provide it. Doesn't have to be us, somebody has to. Same thing with licenses. So I wouldn't recommend an RFP. I don't, Matt's already kind of grumbled about, what are you talking about? We have to take this over. I wouldn't want to if I were the city, but I'd like to hear directly from the city. But certainly the private side, Dave, you know these better than I do, right? That's what Waconia's not doing all these titles, right?
Well, yeah, they're not doing the driver's licenses for sure. And they're not, if you got a complicated title transaction, you're not going there. You're coming to Chanhassen or Chaska.
Right.
Even Scott County sends their complicated transactions over to Chaska. That's where part of our people. Yeah, they were at Scott County and they said, go over to Carver County. They'll help you out with that.
Maybe we're too good.
Yeah, we do a good job.
Madam Mayor.
All yours.
Sorry, I mean to steal your thunder. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners, for being here. This was an interesting part of the conversation. I was here to discuss libraries. So, to answer your question, I mean, this was not a conversation that we were anticipating having. And I would say that one of the overarching questions is, as a city, we're responsible for the residents within our city. And this license center operates on a county level to service all of Carver County. So if it's at a deficit, why is the city of Chaska responsible for subsidizing the loss? I agree, Administrator Hemsey, that this is a more philosophical or overarching question of federal, state, the cost of doing business. I don't think that pushing it down to a city is going to solve that problem. We're, happy to explore what the other cities are doing, but I think anecdotally we've heard that the cities aren't necessarily in love with having it at the city level in some of those cities that do have it. And I don't believe they offer all of the same services. So it's kind of an apples to oranges argument anyways. Did I hit all the bases?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions while I stand here?
You don't want to be in the license business?
Not really.
So there's hope. There's a window.
Yeah. I mean, Tom, you're hard to say no to, right?
I think she said there's a chance.
No,
Well, I think the other,
saying it,
if I
not at
could,
all. She didn't say no.
if I could, Mr. Chair, the other, obviously we want to partner, and which is why I want to make sure Matt was in the room, and the mayor, thank you for coming in, Elise. This is an important, I think, sort of fork in the road. Which way are we going? And if the majority of the board wants to stay in the business, great. One thing that was brought up, we didn't really explore combining the library and basically tearing down this building. We didn't really fully explore that because it just seems so obvious that this building's in pretty good shape. And the expense related to that would be very challenging. Maybe long-term that would pay off, when you get into that kind of math. But at this point, that's not the plan, and you'll hear that from during the library presentation. And I would say it doesn't have to be the city to do that. It's a partnership. We could still operate it. There would be some merit in that, but I'm a little concerned about the expense of that, given the amenity that we currently have. But I think let's talk about that as they present a game plan with the library. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes. First of all, I do want to commend Administrator Hemsey and Director Frischman on having this conversation. I think this is an important conversation to have because we're talking about the role of government. And I think it's important as we go into a difficult fiscal year where the state government tends to want to shift their costs onto the county, and we need to think about where we tighten our belt. And looking at areas is going to be something that we continue to do. I think the problem is the cost of government is continuing to increase. And we're seeing it at the DMV and we're seeing it at other places. But the question is, does government provide the services that our community needs? And I think that I know that this is an essential service. And at a time when the federal government is requiring more identification in general, I would hate to be in a place where we're limiting this service to our community. I also think that if this were to be privatized, it would cost our residents more money because it isn't a service that does make money, and that's why government does it. Government does the services that private industry can't afford to do. And that's our role. Our role is to fill in the gaps and provide these services. Is there a time where we need to get out of this business? Perhaps. I don't think now is that time. And I would propose staying in the, quote, business of the DMV because it's an essential service and our community wants us to be in that business. That's where I stand.
Commissioner Fahey, been kind of quiet.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I apologize for that. I don't feel very well. I kind of have a sore throat, and so I've been sucking on my cough drops, trying to stay focused in the moment. But a lot of comments being made, and for me, I think it's a great opportunity for us to be able to push back on the state and our local legislators, and what if the state would change the state law to increase the fees by $5, $10, $15 per transaction? I think a law change would probably change our bottom line, and the revenue numbers would probably change overnight. And as we look back on the 10-year combined operations that Mr. Fishman shared with us, it's just ironic to see all the changes there. MinLars, MinDrive, the Real ID. I don't think there's a county in the state that created those programs. Those are all state-driven, and they're driven down to the counties then to provide the essential service, as Commissioner Anderson alluded to. So, and these problems are happening metro-wide. When you have growth puts pressures on all of us and all of the services, and we need to adapt, and we need to learn, and we need to continue to provide those services. There was a lot of discussion about economic development and the impact, and there again, most of the people on this board understand that Commissioner Lynch and I live the furthest away from Chaska. And when I go and renew my tabs at Chaska or Waconia, it's always, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to go to Target. I might go to Cub Foods. I might go to Mac and Tunes, and I'm going to buy my groceries and also impact the local economy. And if 52% of people that are coming to the Chan facility from Hennepin County, I got a pretty good guess that they're probably spending a little bit more money in Carver County. So I think that's a win for us. And going back to what happened in 2020 with COVID, and we all lived through that, and the money that the federal government provided, and at that time I was a full-fledged commercial banker, and all of the PPP loans of all this money that came into these small businesses that basically, and also the counties and the cities that enabled us all to survive. And are we still reeling from that? One could say we probably are. But I do think that it's definitely an essential service and the county needs to continue to provide this service. But I'd like to see us continue to push back on the state and try to get an increase in some of the transaction costs. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so as maybe a coda on this issue, it doesn't sound like the board would like to entertain an RFP, the Uterman idea to go out for an RFP to have privates look at this, like a nod of the heads or, no?
I am not in favor of that.
Okay. Commissioner Anderson?
No, I believe that our county operates this service as efficiently as possible, and we should be commended for the work that we do in the DMV. And I do want to thank Mr. Frischman and your staff for all the good work that we do at the DMV. I think that would probably be my least favorite job. And I spent a little time at the DMV on Friday, and I appreciate the work, and I think we do it as well as can be, as anyone, and continue to push back on the state of Minnesota. But I do think we need to stay in this business.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, if I could, I think it's a very valuable service. As a matter of fact, I can reflect back on October 23rd of 1982. I took my driver's license here, and I got 100%. Well, that might not be 100 completely true, but I passed. It was a pass. But don't throw knives yet, because I have to ask this question. Mr. Frischman, if Chaska were to close, could we transfer everything else up to Chanhassen, including the state? Would the state automatically go? And not only that, but when we open both of them, that's why we have passports up there and no passports here, because we couldn't have both of them, driver's license and passports, in the same facility, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Commissioner Lynch. We cannot combine. There's three things you can't do in the same location. That's passports, vitals, which we do in the land records on purpose, separate building, and then the first-time driver's licenses. That's why we could not do passports in Chaska. We can do it in the government center, which is where we do passports now. So those have to be separate. That's a Homeland Security rule that kind of came out of 9/11. Was a big driver factor for that.
And we pushed back on that, but ultimately we lost. And then the other one was, again, don't throw knives. If we close Chaska, would the DMV automatically move up to the driver's automatic move up to Chaska or Chanhassen?
Well, that would be a state's decision. I think it's unlikely, in part because there's no room for them up there. I think they've been operating where they've been for a while. It's a good, like as I mentioned, satellite operation. It would not be automatic. It would be their decision if they wanted to, or where they'd want to go. So yeah, they'd have to decide that.
It is very difficult, but this is a service that I'm not willing to walk away from. The state's been bleeding us on this for quite some time, but I'm not willing to walk away from it, Mr. Chair.
okay. And if Chaska closed, Chanhassen would become untenable.
Yeah, it'd be.
I'm sorry, when Chaska.
Now I'm gonna
Thanks
start
for being
throwing
here.
knives.
Should we move on to libraries?
Yes.
I'm glad Commissioner Anderson brought it up, and I should say that it is a very difficult job, which is a large reason for the turnover, is just, it is not easy to stand there and have the public upset with you, and all the rules that, they're all state rules that we have to enforce, and the state has us do it. I wouldn't last up there very long either. But the interesting thing is, for certain people, they love the job. And one lady we hired, she said, you're going to take me out of here in a box. I love my job. And, some people like that constant, just, helping people. And when we get the right people, they tend to stick around a long time, get them trained up. So, and the managers do a great job. It's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of complaints. But we have great staff. We have great management team. Yeah, so appreciate your bringing
Yeah,
that up.
they're a great team, and I appreciate their service to our community.
Yeah, I used to get a fair number of complaints, and I haven't gotten a complaint in a while. Maybe they're just getting better at managing those complaints, but yeah, they're not filtering up to us. I don't think the board, I've not gotten something from the board that a commissioner's, somebody's complained to a commissioner about something. We got the new queuing software and appointment software is really slick. It's all one system, so people can get their appointment and then they can get in line. So we're making a lot of improvements. Really, they do a great job, so. Thank you.
Thanks for them. Thank you.
Okay.
Chair, Dave, I would like to ask, because I think that our service level, we have to keep an eye on that on a quarterly basis to have some metrics to maintain that what we're doing or making it better, to keep an eye on that. And then I'd also ask, from a capacity standpoint, we know our county is growing. If there's additional, we need to put it on the radar to figure out what we need from a capacity standpoint. Because if service levels start to slip, we have to have an answer if we're going to be in this business. I also think we're giving a free pass to the state. This is an unfunded mandate yet again, in 7 years in a row of losses. And I appreciate my colleagues' comments about the county being in the economic development business as being a piece of that. There is an impact, and I don't know what that dollar amount is. Maybe it's $3 or $4 per visit. That's the number I'll use. And others have said, contrary to that, that we're not in the economic business. But if we're going to subsidize it to the tune of $500,000 to $1 million a year, we should probably also plan to have it back in if it does creep up to 500,000, 600,000, 800,000 a loss. And we're probably not going to get it from the board today. But what is the point where we would say we have to revisit this to say we're not going to continue to subsidize the loss? Right now, it's about a percentage of levy. Because what is it, $750,000 is 1% of levy, so it contributes to our levy, and we'll have this conversation later the year too.
Yeah, that's fair. It is something, County Administrator and I, we do talk about it, is part of our budget overview. We look at all of our services, all of the costs. So I do think it's an ongoing discussion, and we'll keep it at top of our mind and come back with a recommendation if we think we need to go in a different direction.
Okay, we're going to talk about libraries. Again, Madam Mayor, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Workman and Commissioners, for the opportunity to be here this morning. I get to start this wonderful program off. He's going to sit down because I'm going to take over the whole entire microphone. No, I'm here to help tee up the discussion of the library. Can we advance the next slide, or do I do that?
I think you do it right there.
Oh, thank you.
You have the power.
I have the power. I don't have this power when I sit in the chamber. So, okay. So I'm here to just give a little bit of background history as far as, why a new library. And one of the things that we do with the council is we get together every single year and have a strategic plan. We reevaluate our strategic plan. I should say we have a strategic retreat with our department heads. And in 2021, we got together and we talked about our city facilities. And we realized that a lot of our facilities are over 30 years old. A lot of them were built in a time when our community was about 10,000 people. And as we approach 30,000 people, the state of our facilities not only are aging, but they also are out of capacity for the amount of staff and resources and things that are needed in them. And so one of those facilities is our library. And with that strategic plan, we came out of two goals. One was to have quality city services, and one of them was to have quality facilities. And so, as you can see, we decided to move forward with a building plan, which was 4 buildings. And our first building, here, hold on, advance the slide. Our first priority was our public safety facility, which is off of Engler. And happy to report that we have our certificate of occupancy. So our fire and police departments will be starting to move into that location. To service those needs. And then our second priority was our municipal services building, which house our public works, our electrical, our water and sewer. And so we are just getting into the construction process of that. And then the third priority is our libraries. Our library is significantly undersized for our community size. And so we are here to talk about the library. And then last, because the police and the library will move out of City Hall, we will remodel our City Hall. I'm gonna go back a slide, because after we developed this, we decided that for, cost-saving purposes, it was going to be better for us to do a 4-year funding plan on that. And so we just completed with this 2026 budget, in our levy, we completed the 4th year of funding for that. Let's see, we had a robust engagement campaign with the community. We were at pretty much our large festivals that we host inside of Chaska. We also had smaller neighborhood parties within our wards to talk about all of our buildings. We had a few community meetings. We hosted some open houses inside of our existing facilities to kind of really showcase just what our current facilities look like. And we also did a mailing to everyone in our community about the building program and the costs and what the plan was, as well as a lot of, social media engagement as well. Let's see. And then this is the timeline. So as I kind of discussed it before, the public safety facility is done and we're getting ready to move into that, and we're getting ready to construct the municipal service building. And now, as part of that, this year, we're getting ready to start talking about the library. And the library is the one facility in our city that is going to be used the most by the public. And so part of that piece is having that public engagement. And so right now, we are establishing members of a task force that's going to be comprised of both some community members and a commission member, and a council member, and then also have a design task force that will have city staff and county staff from the library. So I think that is everything that I was going to talk about. I'm going to pass it over to Matt.
Thank you,
Welcome,
Mayor.
Matt.
Thank you. Thank you for
How
having
long
us
have you been at the
today.
city, Matt?
What's that?
How long have you been at the city?
They actually just gave me my 25-year certificate the other day. So, but actually, it's going to be 26 years in like a month. So it's been a while.
Certificate redeemable at the subway that's
Yeah, I guess.
closing?
It's been a long
closing,
time.
so.
I've known Dave a long time. So, all right. Let's see here. So what I'm going to talk about is a little bit about library assumptions. So we have had a relatively undersized library for quite some time. When we actually were cleaning out some of the basement of City Hall, we found the original brochures that were handed out at the grand opening of City Hall, which happened back in 1987, and which was quite a while ago. And what was interesting in that brochure is it said, this City Hall will serve the needs of the community until the year 2000. And we're like, well, that's interesting. We're in the year 2025 and we're finding these things, and we're 25 years past when it was supposed to serve its time. The only change that we've actually made onto City Hall during that time period is actually this picture. Back in 2002, we did a small addition. It was about 4,000 square foot addition onto the library, and then also put library administration above that. And so that made our current 8,000 square foot library. Now, typically, the standard is about a square foot per resident in a community for the size of a library. We'll be about 35 to 36,000 square foot when we're finally done. And so we've always sort of looked at final library product of being about 35,000 square foot in size. That would make us about exactly the same size as Chanhasen's library. That one is 35,000 square foot. So trying to mimic similar square footage size to that. And we've toured other facilities that are really around that same size to get a good sense of, what types of services are provided in there, what type of circulation,
how are they staffed, those types of things, which all become very pertinent when you're looking at this. And as we move forward, and we've sort of talked about before, is we've really targeted the area right next to the License Center as being the area that we've looked at for doing this facility. So in this aerial photograph, you'll see the red top building sort of in about the center of the thing. It's just got a laser pointer on it. Right there. There's City Hall right there. So there's City Hall there. Right across the street, we actually own all of this now, sort of on the corner. We own the house and then on the corner. We've had discussions with property owners back here. We have not gone forward and bought any additional property yet, and primarily because we really think we need to go through the design process to really understand exactly what we need to be able to meet our objectives for this project and design this in a way that makes the most sense. And I think some really good discussions were coming out previously talking about, with the License Center next door, there's some opportunities that exist there. Are there opportunities for shared parking? Are there opportunities for other things that might exist between the two buildings? One of the things I know we've talked a lot about is this whole idea about when we first started looking at this, we had looked at the potential of having like a 2-story library on the corner. And I know I've had Dave hammer this to me long enough to know that a 2-story library is way more expensive to staff than a 1-story library. And so, we didn't want to assume anything going into this. We wanted to make sure that we left that open to be able to come up with a design that would really sort of meet the needs of what we're trying to accomplish as a community for a library here, but at the same time be sensitive to the fact that at the end of the day, the county library system has to be able to operate this, and we want this to be something that you guys are able to operate in an efficient manner, because it's going to be easier to be able to provide services and hopefully be able to provide more opportunities to people if we make it efficient to be able to do that. And that's part of really why we're here today, is to talk about the kickoff of that process for design and really talk about our ask for wanting to, for who we want to have present at the table with us to go through that design process. And to give you a sense, we're starting this whole design process for the library about 9 months earlier than we started like the public safety building and the municipal service building, because those buildings were all internal customers. They were all our own staff. It's easy enough to get our staff together on a weekly basis and go over those types of things that we need to think about. But this is going to serve the public. We're bringing together two entities that need to be able to work together. We need to be able to have the right amount of time to go through this to make sure that this project works for everybody. So that's what Elise is going to talk about now, is the process that we plan on using for design.
Hey, Matt, you talked about the 35,000 square foot, which makes sense, 1 square foot per person, and I know that's loose. But cities of this size or smaller size, and I know that Chaska's got a rich library history, starting at the different buildings, and you can track it all the way to where we're at right now. When does the city start to consider, what population do they start to consider having their own library? Did Chaska have their own library when it was 6,000 population, 10, 12?
As far as I know, we've always partnered with the county. I don't know, because it was pre my time. I do know that there was a small library that used to be at one of the Klein mansions over at the Peacock Inn. I do not know if that was actually operated by the city. It was pretty small. They existed in there. But from our perspective, we've always felt like, the county library system has done a great job. And wanted to continue partnering in that way.
Thanks.
Matt, just one question on the blue box. Excuse me, the blue box that you show there, that corner lot there, that would be able to support a 35,000
No, the corner lot was, so there's two houses that we purchased just because they came up for sale.
Okay,
So we purchased those just because we didn't want to lose the opportunity because we knew that we were going to be moving forward. Other properties we've talked to let them know our intent of what we're doing. But those are the only two that we own, but we would not be able to, unless you went to a two-story type of model, which I think there's, like we talked about from a staffing perspective, I think there'd be some real limitations from a staffing perspective.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
And quickly, where's that MSB building going?
It's going at the, so if you know where the medical office building is at the intersection of Clover Ridge Drive and Engler,
Oh,
Catalyst Medical. So if you take a left and you go into the industrial park there, it's at the very end of that road, right before you hit the ravine. It's right at the end there.
okay.
All right, Chair and Commissioners, what I'm providing for you today, I believe, has already been previewed in a memo, but I will detail it a little further in this presentation. So as both Matt and the mayor mentioned, this is a joint design process with the city and the county participation, as well as opportunities for community engagement. And when I'm finished, Matt will come back up and provide some more of that community engagement that we would intend to do as part of this process. As Matt mentioned, we are beginning the process earlier than we have in our other planning for our other facilities. We anticipate this being an 18-month process, not only to get through the design, but as we require ourselves to go through any sort of planning process that we require private developers to go through. So that means we need to go to our planning commission and our council 3 times for the concept, preliminary, and final design processes. So we are, as we look at that timeline, we are baking that into that 18 months. So we would anticipate beginning next month in April. We wanted an opportunity to come here as well as talk to our council about this process with completion by the end of the year in 2027. This would allow us to do bidding in 2028 in January, which is a process we just finished with the MSB facility, so that we could begin construction in the spring of 2028, as soon as that construction season begins. So as was alluded to by the mayor, we look at a couple of different committees. One would be a library task force, which would have 8 members. And the meeting expectation with this group would be 4 times. And they would participate with the architect as well as the staff design group. And their purpose is to provide recommendations to the Chaska City Council. So as we looked at the makeup of this task force, we would look at 1 county commissioner, 1 city council member, 1 library board member, which has already been selected, as well as 1 Friends of the Library member, which has also been selected, and 4 at large. We would see going out, this is similar to what we do to other task forces that we do as part of the city. We go out, solicit folks, particularly from Chaska, to be a part of that process, and they would have an application process and an interview process, and then be selected from there. We would again anticipate beginning that process here within the next month. And then additionally, we would have a staff design group, and this would be county and city staff members. And the expectation would be meeting weekly or bi-weekly throughout the design process. We have found this works very well with the architect. It allows us to continue that momentum that we gain, and then be able to come back and have continued conversations. And the makeup that we would anticipate with this would be 2 Carver County Chaska Library participants, 1 county administration participant, 2 city administration, 2 building maintenance. As we've gone through the process of our other buildings, these folks have been invaluable in part of that design process to allow us to understand what we're getting as far as that building. And plus, they have to maintain it when all is said and done. And so having them as part of that process has been very important. We would also have somebody from our community development department participate in that, again, to help us get through that planning process that we need to do. And then our construction manager, as we've had throughout all the process, has been RJM, and we would ask them to be at the table as well. All right, the first thing that we look to do is go out to an RFP for an architect. And that staff design group will develop an RFP and then select that architect. And we, as at the City of Chaska, would hold that contract with them. So the RFP development is beginning. We're, gathering RFPs that we have seen other folks do, and we'll start to develop that, commencing with that staff group, and look to release that RFP sometime within the next couple of weeks, with proposals due in late April and then interviews happening in May, so that we can begin the design process in late May then. And then, as we talked about meetings, the staff design group would meet weekly. One group we haven't touched on is the library staff. We know in talking with Jody and Kevin that library staff is very interested in being part of the process, and we want them to come along as well. They're the ones who work in the facility. They understand the ins and outs, that sort of thing. So we would like see them meeting as part of the process 4 times with the architects and the staff design group. Once at concept design, once at schematic, one at detailed design, and then prior to going out to bid. And then that would happen before the library task force. We could see it happening maybe that same week or even that same day, happening in succession then with the library task force at those 4 different points. And then additionally, as we go throughout the process, coming back to you all as the county board to provide you updates on what's going on, as well as the Chaska City Council.
Mr. Chair, could I ask you, Elise, when do you see that task force first meeting?
We would like to get that architect on board first, so probably beginning of summer, June, July timeframe. So we need to get those final 4 at-large members identified, as well as the county commissioner.
Okay, I don't think we formalized this, so we could bring these appointments back to you for formal review. We haven't done that, have we, Nick? I don't. Okay. So we'll do that. Maybe the next meeting we can get the appointments made and let you guys know.
Great, thank you. And with that, I will turn it back to Matt.
Yeah, like we've talked about before, one of the things that we think is going to be critical in this process is community engagement. Because at the end of the day, it is going to be the community that's utilizing this space. And, the good thing about going around and looking at different libraries, we got to see what worked, what didn't work. There were some pretty cool things that you thought, boy, that'd be awesome if you had that, and you realize it wasn't being used. It's going to be important for us to understand what the public really views as being important here. So we're going to have a number of open houses throughout this process and really bring the public along with this. So really starting out with conceptual design, so people won't look at just one thing and say, this is what you're looking at. They'll look at a few different options of conceptual plans and be able to talk about what are the things you like or don't like about the different plans. And it won't be that you say, I like this plan but don't like these 2 plans, but what are the components that you like, so that we can really start to understand what are the things that people really feel should be in the library. And then, the detailed design, we're going to want to have other open houses once we do start to narrow it down to final design, to make sure that we've heard what they said correctly, that we go back and say, here's what we heard, based on what we heard, here's what we've put into detailed plans. Does this still reflect what the public is wanting to have occur? So, going through those options with open houses, but we've also done certain additional things with small pop-up booths at things like our farmers market or our community events like Fire and Ice, River City Days. We've done things like surveys that we've put out online that we've had really good response rates at, and people have provided really good feedback. And probably the most important one is to actually have it at the library. The people who are actually using the library, for them to be able to see what the vision is for the future and be able to get their input on what they like or don't like about the current library and what they want to see more of. You know, just off the bat, I mean, I work in the building, I see it every day. You know, the thing that I know that they want to desperately do all the time, especially in the summer, is hold programs. And we just don't have the space to hold programs. And it is so tough to get kids in there in the summer and be able to do things. And, you know, to be able to have that space and be able to have those types of things that bring in kids and families, especially in the summer during breaks, I think is going to be a real welcome addition down there. And then, you know, our architect is going to further refine our community engagement opportunities as we move along. As far as the construction budget itself, so we estimate that it's going to be about $19 million for the actual construction of the building. These came off of estimates that we had done at the beginning of our building program. We've now done 2 buildings, and they've come pretty darn close to the estimates that we came up with in the first 2 buildings. So we hope we stay pretty close on this one as well. And as the mayor talked about, our entire building program was supported through a 4-year program that was implemented between 2023 and 2026 with increases to our tax levy, which did end with this year's budget, and then fund all 4 of the buildings that we're working with in this program. I think that might. That's yours? Oh, it's your turn. All right.
Win the award for as many different presenters.
Right.
It shows partnership.
Yes, it is a partnership here, and that's why I want to talk about a little bit here is the collaboration between the city and the county, especially when it comes to funding the library. So what I always say is, if you take the library and you flip it upside down, everything that falls out is the county's responsibility. Everything that remains is the city's responsibility here in Carver County. So the city's responsible for the walls, the carpet, the windows, HVAC systems, mechanical. That's all part of the city's budget. Everything that comes out, so the books, the shelving, the computers, the technology, staff, that is all the county's responsibility.
I think the shelving, we can screw that down.
I think we're going to bolt a lot of stuff down, which will help us a lot. Yes. So with that, the county will have one-time cost for this new library. With that, right now, like the city mentioned, you know, we're still very early in the process. So we've put out $4 million as the initial estimate. There's still a lot of unknowns what the space is going to look like, which will, of course, then drive that number potentially higher or lower. That's our rough estimate right now. As part of the long-term financial plan that was presented in December, Dave Frischman noted that we could potentially use YES funds for our contribution, and or potentially add it to the government center bond sale, because those projects will likely be lining up, so potentially utilize that bond sale for the county's one-time cost here as well. In addition, as I mentioned, staffing is the responsibility of Carver County as the county provides the operations for the library. Our initial request is 7 FTEs, but again, that assumes no changes to the service model, you know, kind of looking at something similar to what Chanhassen has. And right now, there's a lot of unknowns. You know, we don't know the building design. I'm glad it won't be 2 stories. That will help. But the building design can impact this. What services are we going to be providing there, and how are those services going to be delivered will impact our staffing needs. I always mention or keep an eye on our maintenance of effort, which is a state requirement for system-wide. I don't think we're going to run into any issues with dropping below that maintenance of effort with this library, but it's something that we always like to keep an eye on. And then, you know, what opportunities does extended access
offer the county. And this library in particular, if we have open access hours, what's that balance of staffed hours versus extended access? And then any sort of cost-sharing model going forward with baseline services and additional services. Those are all things that we have to work out as we look at staffing the library.
Could I add to that, Mr. Chair?
Of course.
I think that you could back up,
Yeah.
Nick. That's a real important topic to talk about as we move into the next few rounds of budget discussions. Certainly 2028 is the biggest one, right? Or would this be, we'd have to staff this 2028, we think? Or would it be 29?
It's constructed in 28, open in 29.
29, okay.
And it's actually like second half of 29, so it's really 2030.
Keep pushing.
Yeah,
Better,
31.
Yeah, because time does help, but it also helps us have these discussions. And I have, at least informally, introduced the concern of, boy, that's a big number. You take 7 FTEs times 150, if you include salary benefits, whatever that number, it's a lot, right? Percent plus on our levy. And, this is a preliminary, what do we think it would take under the current service delivery model? And that's really the key. And just like the license center discussion, what is our service delivery model? What types of services are we offering? And of course, that's always this balancing act of the mandatory, non-mandatory. Licenses are non-mandatory. They're the biggest share of our non-mandatory budget, by the way. They are not essential like the license center. So all these variables, let's keep talking about them. We'll reintroduce those in the budgetary discussions. We don't need to decide yet, but I do want to lay the groundwork for these discussions because I think there's some opportunities here. Electronic access is a huge opportunity. For example, and was that just the last meeting we had? We talked about the game plan for electronic access. All of our libraries, and of course this one will be electronic access by the time this one opens, right? And this one, that's going to be an important part of the design discussion, to make sure we have that, because that then allows our users more access. So then the issue is, are there staff in the library at those times? And that's the debate. And what I've introduced, and we want to talk about this, and Jody and Nick are working on the sort of the models for discussion. It really kind of, to me, boils down to the staffing hours, and in particular as it relates to programming. That's the real discussion point, or one of the biggest discussion points. And of course, this is an extremely popular service, right? So I don't envy the board and their position and the balancing that they're doing here, but we don't need to decide today by any means, but I wanted to make sure I brought that topic up. We'll add some clarity to these options as we move through the budget discussions. How would that look? I've asked Nick, at the very least, let's provide the alternative if the board decides, well, we can't afford that level of service or this marginal level, whatever it is. It'd be really nice to provide an option for the cities to say, well, we'd like to pick that up, or we'd like to work with our parks or maybe volunteers or others to provide that service, maybe a different way. And that's the kind of path that we're heading down. And I realize how volatile it is. I've been in this boardroom when we've talked about cutting library hours, right? And it packs the room. So I understand how important and how emotionally attached these services are. But I want to lay that out. The board, you've heard this before, right? But I wanted to make sure the mayor and others in the room heard this discussion. And Nick, do you have anything to add? You've been rolling up your sleeves a little bit on this with Jody.
No, I think that was great. Yep. Back to the city.
All right. Well, I think we talked a little bit about next steps. I think probably the big thing is going to be having you guys decide who you want to serve on the task force. And I think, like Elise said, that we're going to be early summer when we get the group together once we choose the architect. So over the next few meetings, if you're able to do that, and certainly if you have any questions, we're certainly willing to come back and discuss more, but we really appreciate you having us here this morning.
Okay, any questions? Commissioner Anderson?
Chair Workman, I just wanted to make a comment. We were able to host the city and do a little bit of a tour. And I think the thing that I really appreciate is the city's understanding about the long-term costs. And I think when we looked at some of those buildings, we realized the importance of design. Some of those library managers would say having more than one entrance increases the amount of staff. More than one level increases the amount of staff. And so I do think that with our partnership and with smart design, we can look at staff more effectively and better for our community. I personally would rather use staff for programming and for things that impact the community rather than just a quasi-security guard making sure that the right people are coming in and the wrong people aren't. And so I really appreciate your partnership. The other area that I really appreciate your partnership on is I've often said in government, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And the involvement with the community, the task force or the, I can't remember which is the task force and which is the design team, whichever is really important. I have had a booth across from the city booth. And when you talk about the long-term plan, and I've seen the people come in and I've seen your staff and council members roll up their sleeves and have conversations about space and parks and all sorts of things. City of Chaska does community engagement really well. And I appreciate that partnership. I think it's time for us, and I've talked to our county libraries, and I've talked to the mayor about this. We need to really reimagine how libraries operate and rebrand that. I think so many people, I hear it all the time, for as many as people who are library lovers, and we need to have that. There's people who are like, why do we need a library anymore? What is the point of that? And we were able to tour some libraries that had some really unique elements and provide services to our community that don't exist right now. And I love the idea of talking with those who are in the library. I think we also need to be really clear about targeting people who aren't using the library. And why aren't they using the library? I think young people and people who have children use the library a lot. An underutilized population may be our seniors, who have the highest level of mental health needs. Is that a population that we really need to target and bring in? Is because libraries really are that community gathering place. So I am, as the liaison to the libraries, I'm really excited about this. I moved into this community at a time we were talking about building a new library, and we still are. So it's fun to be here in this seat as we really see this dream come to fruition. And again, I appreciate your partnership in making this library a really special place for not only the city of Chaska, but the entire Carver County library system.
Commissioner Uterman.
A couple questions and a couple comments. I saw the build-out plan. I didn't see the community center. Is that up next is that the plan to address that after the library?
Yeah, the community center is the only building we haven't come up with a firm plan on yet. That's actually something we're talking about as part of our strategic planning process this year, which is coming up in a couple weeks. So we do not have a solid plan for that. Every other building we do.
I ask because there's a chance for some overlap, even when we're planning our government center. It's not an insignificant amount of money. I think there's $500 million in civic investment in the eastern part of the county in the last 3 years, in the next 5 years, including these buildings. I noticed that Jim was named, the only one named to some of these committees.
Yep.
And boy, does he know libraries, and he's been attached to them for very long. He is a Carver resident, so it kind of made me think if there's a Friends member that would be in Chaska, maybe it even lend itself to the question, is the city of Carver planning on contributing to this library, or are they maybe planning in the future of making their own library? Because I know they use our golf course through relationship, they use our, and I'm a taxpayer too,
Yeah.
they use our community center, they have the benefit and the growth to be using the Chaska Library. Are they contributing financially for the,
We have not had any discussions about that. I mean, just anecdotally, we know that residents of the city of Carver use our library quite often right now. But we have not had any discussions about that.
a couple comments, just, I've been attached to the library for years. My predecessor put me on the county library. These aren't questions, they're more comments. I've come to love the libraries, know the libraries. My kids use the libraries. It's just a fact. I also know that there's a lot of sensitivities around it and the cost associated, and who uses it and all that other stuff. And so I just did some math, and I just thought this would be helpful as we're guiding decisions. I don't know that we need to create demand because library uses are different, but as we're planning the wow factors of this library, it's not just 1 square foot more than Chanhassen's library. It's not just 35,000 square foot of library. It's actually opportunity and what it might look like if there was a cooking kitchen, a community cooking kitchen to teach people stuff. I'm looking in the back, seeing a lot of nods. I've been a proponent for that years. I had a chance to be in Bentonville, Arkansas, where they had a hologram of Sam Walton. You walked in the room, if you didn't know he was dead, you would have thought he was there. And so is there an opportunity for the wow factor of having a hologram of somebody, you know, whether it's Prince or whether it's the bricklayers from our history or whether it's the bankers and the Klein family or whatever. I dream
Mr.
about these
Workman.
things. Tom Workman's
Please.
maybe we can recreate his high jump, right? And so I think about that. I think about, and I've shared all these things, I'm just sharing them again publicly. Should there be showers there for people to bike to work or be part of the downtown community? Should there be a place to house our bikes? Should there be a place for a punch out for people to enter in the backside for maybe mental health drop in partnerships with HHS? Should this be considered to be a family resource center because we've kind of got our way to having one, and what does that look like for permanence? And I say all these things to say the math doesn't always support some of the stuff. And so this is a big piece of a $100 million plus decision that we have a role in. And I just take the $571 is $20 million over 35,000 square foot. And I ask some of these questions because if you look at the population of Victoria and Carver, and I asked the question about at what point do they have their own bona fide big library? In the next 20 years, they're planned to be north of 15 to 20,000 population each city. And so I look at the practical realities of if Chaska builds a 35,000 square foot library and Chanhassen has a 35,000 square foot library, and in 20 years, Carver wants one and Victoria wants one, it quickly gets to an escalating costs, another 60 to $70 million of build costs, plus whatever we put into those buildings within the course of 20 years. It's a $100 million decision if we have 3 libraries in the eastern part of the county in addition to Carver. And the staffing associated with it, which right now it's about $1 million and $1.5 million. That's 2 percentage points of levy. So I think about these things. I also know that in the last 10 years, our library visits have gone down 47%, while parks and trails have gone up 211%. That's a trend, and we're seeing a lot of shifts to digital materials and not necessarily physical visits. I don't think any amount of marketing, which the county does not do or do well, I would say, by and large. We don't market for driving demand. These are shifts that are happening. Chaska Library visits, if my numbers are right and the interweb is correct, about 58,000 visits to the Chaska Library last year. I believe the community center is around 800,000 visits. So community center is outpacing the library about 14 visits, 14 to 1. And so I think about that, the health benefits, because we're in the health business, right? Health and human service. And then a couple more statistics to share. On a per use basis, it costs about a per visit basis, it costs less than $1 for visits in our parks and our trails. And it's about $16 for every visit that we have to our parks. Of course, if we push visits up, it brings the per unit cost down, and of course with more population. But that's a sizable change of what's going on. And so I just paint the picture of saying libraries have their place and they're beloved and they've changed a lot in 10 years. But the usage patterns have also changed. And so I bring that, and then the last thing is I just did a scan of my taxes and all the taxes that are going on. In a time when house values have grown 3%, Chaska taxes have grown 12%, at the same time county taxes at 5%. And so these are real dollars. I had somebody just this week stop me and they gave me this dollar. I don't know if I could accept it or not. I figured I could. I'm going to leave it at the Diaz if anybody wants to grab it. But they said this isn't a Chaska dollar or a Carver dollar or a state dollar. It's my tax dollars. And it's not lost on me when we look at big discussions of potentially 8 to 12% increase on levy, that some of these discussions feed into it. And so I know that our initial estimates, Dave, when we started some of these conversations, were 9 headcount inside the library. And I think everybody should know that was, if we look at all the headcount increase expected in the next 5 years, that's the top area, not the sheriff's office, not health and human service, not parks, but in libraries. And that's a big investment that we as a board have to choose to make or not make as it comes to this. So I appreciate you being here. I think it's going to be cool. I hope there's super great wow factors. I don't think we should have 3 new libraries in the next 20 years in Eastern Carver County. And I've been a proponent for one big one. I don't think that's going to happen unless it's this one. So thanks for being here.
Okay, anybody else?
If I could, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say that I had the same comments that Commissioner Anderson echoed, is that when you first got elected with the invention of the internet, libraries are going to be obsolete. I see Taylor smiling too. She's heard that same one. That's absolutely false. And the people use it people use the library all the time. It's done nothing but grown. All except for maybe Matt. Matt sounds like he's a little anti-programming, so maybe I have to work on him. No, I think he's okay. But I really appreciate the planning you put into this. You've toured the other libraries and what works, what doesn't work. I think that's the proper planning and preparation prevent poor performance, and you're doing all the planning, doing all the footwork. So I appreciate you and the council for what you're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So I just finished a big book, 1,033 pages.
Dwayne?
Tip and Minton.
Twain. Fascinating biography. Yeah, he did die. And my
By
arms,
popular myth.
my arms. What did he say? Humans are the only animals that blush or need to. But my arms are better off because of it. Those are big, fat books, and it's hard to get comfortable reading those. And I should be going to an e-reader or something, but I can't stand it. I have a smallish library in my home, and I love real books. But there is that debate about what is the future, and I hope it's paper books, hardcover books. Those bookshelves also hold nice whiskey, and whiskey and books is a good combination for those who partake. But we do wonder about the future, and that was supposed to occur a long, long time ago. I think when we were starting the Victoria Library, and that's a different, more electronic style library. But libraries are doing a lot more than just real hardcover books, as we know. And so that debate, it's a great debate, not one that I'm sure that this county board is going to take on. But this is a lot like the License Center debate, and I think Mr. Hemsey portrayed it like that. So when we close the Chaska License Center and when we close the Chaska Library, I think there's going to be swimming in extra revenue and ideas for the rest of the county. So nobody from Chaska is laughing.
He's joking.
No, they're not.
And so, but I grew up in this town, so I love this town and love the library. And so when somebody mentioned the Kleinhaus library, immediately smells came into an old beautiful home and a bunch of books, stacks of books. It's a pretty unique smell and feel, and a little guy from Guardian Angels school over there, who knows what I was looking up, but you might have probably rode your bike there, but it's good fun. So it's fun to have been around long enough to see where everything is gone. And you might see me at used book sales, say hi, might have some whiskey in my pocket, probably not, but this is a great debate, discussion, and sounds like we're going to get right to it here, not too long from now. Can I ask you, Matt, what's up with the bus site, school bus site?
So we got an update a couple weeks ago from the school district. Our understanding is that they may be phasing their school bus site in Carver.
Up to 11?
Yep, up on, off of,
Wickenhauser?
yep, so that they may do like half of it and then keep half of it down here for some time. That's not official, that's just sort of what they're looking at from a planning perspective. But I don't think they have anything finalized yet.
Okay.
But my impression was it was 2028 when they were looking at building that.
Okay, anybody else on libraries? Hearing none.
I just wanted to point out that Mr. Metz didn't get the memo that last week was St. Patrick's Day.
It's St. Patrick's Month,
Oh, okay.
if you ask me. So,
Neither did Deb Barber.
We always need to catch him.
we razzed him. Don't worry, we razzed him.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you, Chaska. We love you, Chaska. All right, we are going to talk
Start first. Got
about
it.
the 2050 County Comprehensive Plan.
Board, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I think what we're going to do is start off with Metropolitan Council guests today. We have our area representative, Deb Barber, here. I want to thank Deb for coming, as well as our sector rep, Mackenzie Young-Walters, who have a presentation. If you want to switch that over to the other one. We can start off with that, and then I'll follow up with our next steps here.
Thank you, Mr. Moline.
Thank you very much, and we'll try to be brief because we know this has been, we've had lots to cover. So I am Deb Barber.
Thank you for your patience.
I got no problem. It was all interesting, and so I appreciate it, actually. I'm Deb Barber. I'm your Metropolitan Council rep. I represent District 4, which is most of Scott and Carver County, with the exceptions of the cities of Chanhassen and Savage. So it's a pretty big district. All told, I represent 38 communities, so 2 counties, 20 townships, 16 cities. So try to do this as much as possible and get out to the communities to talk to people, because it's, you know, I don't mind sitting through the first part of the meeting because you kind of learn what's happening in the communities. It's really good for us to get that exposure. A couple of roles I have on council is I chair the Transportation Committee. I'm the council's representative to the Transportation Advisory Board, and I'm the vice chair of the Audit Committee. All right, so a little bit on our history, authority, and our organizational structure. And some of this you'll know, some of it may be just a refresher. So the council was established by the Minnesota legislature in 1967. A lot of people always ask, where do we get our authorities? Where do we get our structure, what we do? Everything has come from the legislature. And so really what the legislature was looking at initially was to address, first off, was wastewater, but then there were other things that were added on, and it's really to look over the orderly and economic development of the 7-county metropolitan region. What the council looks at is those things that cross borders more often than not, and are there ways that we can do that more efficiently? So the primary responsibilities are managing the regional wastewater system, operating Metro Transit bus and rail system. We do issue rental assistance, which is a service we do provide for Carver County. We draft long-range plans and establish regional policy, and we help with maintaining and funding the regional parks. We are responsible in statute for 3 regional system plans, 1 for wastewater, 1 for transportation, 1 for parks. These plans are really important, not only just to define out what we're doing into the future, but when you talk about something like the transportation policy plan, I always tell people the best way to get something funded into the future is to get it built into the plan, because that is something that future councils, future groups will look to. So it's really important. We also have responsibilities for developing housing, land use, and climate policy. And we're responsible for developing the Regional Development Guide every 10 years. A couple of other things in operations, we're the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is tied to the work at the Transportation Advisory Board and providing transit and wastewater services. All right, so as we were talking, we do the Regional Development Guide every 10 years. I'm sure many of you will recall Thrive 2040. We're on to the next version of that right now. And what that does is kicks off a cycle of planning for local governments as well. And that's what we're here to talk about today and try and give some of the background of that, because it does kick off the comprehensive planning cycle for the rest of the group. And what we had passed was Imagine 2050, and it sort of outlines the plans for the next 20 years. So we have to, we're by state statute, required to update it every 10 years. And it has a lot of information in it. So it has ties to the local and regional forecast, land use policy, like I said, those system plans, and then ultimately to the housing policy plan. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mackenzie, who is our real expert here, and will be a fantastic resource for you and your staff as we go through this process.
Welcome.
Thank you much. As mentioned, I'm Mackenzie. I'm the sector rep for Carver County and all of its communities. I'm going to go through stuff pretty quickly as well. It sounded like from some of the previous conversations, you're already very aware that Carver County is our fastest growing county, projected to grow by about 50% by 2050 from the 2020 census. That growth, of course, is not spread evenly throughout the county. Most of it will be occurring in the cities, which we've classified as suburban edge in the eastern portion of the county. That being said, especially in the 2041 to 2050 decade, we do expect to see some more of that growth beginning to spill into the rural centers as some of those cities begin to hit build out and the growth moves further west. Mostly the agricultural areas will stay pretty low growth. They're still assigned the 1 per 40 designation. And while nothing has changed for the areas of the county where the county has land use authority in terms of density policy, there have been a lot of updates in the comprehensive planning requirements between 2040 and 2050 planning cycles. To that end, the council's invested quite a bit of resources in trying to increase the technical assistance we can provide to communities. We've revitalized a local planning handbook. The goal is to have this website be the one-stop shop for comprehensive planning support. On it, the county can find its checklist of minimum requirements, where we've created an individualized list of every requirement that will need to be met for the 2050 comprehensive plan to be deemed complete. What we've also done that I think is going to be really helpful is we've directly linked resources to each requirement. So you can go to the individual plan elements, like housing, for example. It'll kick out a table of your minimum requirements. Each minimum requirement will have a hyperlink to a fact sheet, to a resource, to a template that your staff can use to enter in the information, and it'll tell exactly what's needed to meet the requirement and help equip them to do that. There are some new requirements this year, and we've put the most effort into developing out those resources. Good example of this is the natural systems requirement that's new this year. So one of the ways we're trying to support communities in this is we created a mapping tool. Cities can go to it, they can pull the shapefile. It lists all of the natural features that, sorry, I said cities, that are present in the county. And that alone will meet the minimum requirement for the mapping, which frees, again, you and your staff up to focus on things that you're better suited to focusing on than we are, which is your visioning, your policy, your priorities as a local entity. My understanding is right now, if you go to this tool, you will not find a Carver County layer. I spoke with our GIS people. We will clip a layer and we'll be able to give it directly to your staff. So you will have the same resources available. And I believe we also spoke with your staff when we were developing these resources, and I know that the county has, in many ways, equivalent data. There's no requirement to use our data. If you have local data that shows the same or is better than ours, you can use that, and you can also modify the data we have to incorporate additional features that you want to highlight for your community. Another one of the new requirements that I know has generated a lot of discussion is the greenhouse gas emissions requirements. We recognized that it would be a significant burden for cities to have to create, for counties to have to create these calculations on their own. So what we did was we built out a model that calculates the in-boundary greenhouse gas emissions for all 188 jurisdictions. Right now, this is the beta tool that's up. The version 1.0 will launch on March 31st. It will have county data on it. And I believe the plan is also then to have all of the Carver County townships lumped together to make it easier for you all to do the land use planning for the townships because you have land use authority over them. So we are also working on one of the features of the tools is it has strategies that counties can put in and adjust dials and see how that would alter the in-boundary greenhouse gas emissions so that all those maths are done for you. They're working on some more county-specific strategies. I'm not quite sure if they'll be alive for 1.0 of the tool, but it's something we're aware of that you all are going to need different approaches in a city, just due to the different nature of your responsibilities. So our goal is to make this tool be as comprehensive, as user-friendly, and as supportive as possible. As always, all the data can be downloaded directly. Your staff can modify it, add scenarios, and alter it to meet your needs. Another thing that we get a lot of questions is, well, what can we even do to affect some of these things? One of the things that we're going to be launching midsummer is a climate action toolkit, which is designed to support some of these requirements. The plan is to have 20 to 30 actions go live with it. These actions will be categorized based on which ones are appropriate for urban communities, suburban communities, and rural areas, whether they're very easy to implement, whether they might require a little bit more of an investment or lift, which subsections the action hits, and then we'll have case studies, resources for implementation. The idea is not that the county would be required to use any of these, but that these are springboards, jumping off points, inspiration, ways to help answer that, but what can we actually do to meet these requirements? So our goal is, again, to provide as many resources as we possibly can. The other thing that we're going to be doing to help with the comprehensive update process is relaunching our Planet program. That's training and resources that Metropolitan Council staff provides to city and county staff. So we'll be having an in-person conference. Both staff is welcome to attend from the county to learn about the minimum requirements for the comprehensive plan, resources available, best practices, answer questions, work hands-on with our technical review staff and make sure that everyone is on the same page and understand what needs to be done for a successful comprehensive plan update. The last way we do support this is with grants. The county is eligible for a $110,000 grant to help defray some of the cost of the update. This is not a competitive grant. There'll be a formal letter incoming end of March, early April at the latest. The way the grant works is just like last year. Half is paid up front, half is paid when we get a complete plan submission. We're also piloting incentive grants this time around with a $4,000 bonus for early submittal and $10,000 if the county chooses to exceed the minimum requirements towards advancing one of the regional goals. These are brand new this year. We're still working out the details. Again, there will be a letter on that forthcoming. These are non-competitive and there's no penalty if, say you go for the early submittal and things happen and you don't make the deadline. That's okay. It's just the $4,000 isn't paid out. I believe every city except Chanhassen in Carver County is getting some sort of financial support from the Met Council for their comprehensive plan update. It's calculated on population and then average net tax capacity, and communities over a certain percentage of the metro-wide average net per capita tax capacity aren't eligible, and Chanhassen clicked over that bar, but everyone else was eligible.
Even Victoria?
Victoria is eligible. They are smaller population, so they had a higher per capita net average tax capacity threshold, is my memory. Please don't quote me on that. There's a lot of spreadsheets.
Too late.
Yeah. But, yeah, I do know Victoria qualified. With that, I went really fast because I wanted to leave time for questions. So myself and Councilmember Barber would be very happy to answer any questions you have.
Commissioner Uterman.
Well, let's get it started, right? Thanks for being here. Met Council's a love-hate relationship sometimes. Our position on wanting it to be elected officials, and you've navigated quite a year. We got Paul in the room who's probably done more comp plans than anybody, right? Is that right, Paul, within our organization?
Maybe.
Yeah, something like that. So, planning doesn't just take place, but it seems like affordability is a big conversation. Does Met Council have any role in playing when it comes to hooking up to water and sewer or other things to bring the access to affordable housing or other things? Is there tools in the tool belt, or are we looking in the wrong place if we start looking at that? I have a couple more questions for you, probably Deb, and
Kids is like, thank you.
yeah.
When it comes to, especially for sewer availability charges and ways to connect to the regional system, we don't have a tool to implement to apply just for affordable housing. I think one of the things that we've been able to do successfully to help try and keep costs down is the entire time I've been on council, we have not raised the sewer availability charge. And I think holding that steady at least provides some certainty to builders. There's different policies. The one thing that makes it challenging, I think, to discuss about how to use that as tools, each of the local communities have their own sewer charges and water charges. And so it gets a little confusing and as to who has the levers where. But usually it would be more at the local level.
Yep, okay. Commissioner Workman talks a lot about our jail being our revenue stream, and somewhat tongue in cheek, our revenue is our tax base. And there's no better potential than 212. I call it the road of gold. I know you've been around to have the history on 169 and how that grew. Can you just talk to us about, it's probably the closest compared to if you build it, they will come. A lot of state focus on it, a lot of investment on 169. They saw the growth. How long did it take? What were some of the challenges that we may face as we start to think about this should be a primary place that we focus on 2050 comp planning is 212 and what we've built? Did the city's plan for orderly annex across the entirety of it? Did it evolve over time? Was there a master plan? Did the townships lead it? Is there any parallels you could offer to us as we think about that?
That's a tough question because it kind of covers a long period of time. I think there is, yes, there has been growth along the 169 corridor. It has changed over time, how those things were focused. Obviously, I live in the city of Shakopee, growing pretty rapidly. All of that, where some of the rural centers are also growing rapidly, but in a different way. And each of them have different policies and how they're working to annex areas on and how they're going to evolve that way. And, you know, some of them are far enough out that they are too far out to connect to the regional system at this point. It wouldn't make sense. And so it's working with them on their local policies. We try and help provide resources to some of those cities as they're looking at growing, just like some of the tools that Mackenzie was talking about. But we also have a lot of staff resources because it tends to happen slowly then really fast. And I think that, you know, that's what you want to be talking about with your communities and that's what the comp plan process is actually a great opportunity to vision that out. I mean, I think one part of having all these online tools and things that we're providing is it does free up, you know, technical staff, especially in some of our rural centers, because they don't have a staff of a whole bunch of people and planners. They may have a couple people. Some of the smaller communities might have a consultant, and it's working on that vision. And then that's where we also come to the table of what can we do and provide that piece. So this is the opportunity and the time to talk about all of that. And I think, this county, you have the opportunity because it's not just individual cities, it's how are those things going to connect together.
Yep. I think Bongards is unique for us because it's right on 212. The CFO was in here a couple weeks ago, was talking about when they put water back into the system, how much that costs. That led to a conversation about the corridor. I think we have 11 different identified needs across the county when it comes to water and sewer. The most relevant one is the 201 system, which I know you're familiar with, as well as from a capacity standpoint, Cologne. I think they are no longer issuing building permits until they get water capacity, and of course, that's a bonding issue. As it relates to the 201 system, Pete came in from the township, and he's asking for money from anybody that has a pocket. And I said, if something catastrophic happened, perhaps they should proactively talk to the EPA and Met Council. Do you have anything to do with the 201 system unless a jurisdiction decides that they want to connect to Met Council? I know it's a sticky one.
It is a complicated one, and we have been out to talk to them as well and try to provide some resources because it wouldn't, that area, that township wouldn't connect to the regional system until it's annexed by one of the cities. And that's where it gets complicated. And I know there's been work to try and get bonding money and other things to build out in there, but like, we don't have a space where we can just go in and say, we can just connect all of this. All of that is by changing the municipal service area, and that, right now, that's not in there.
Okay. And then, I think one more question, but a build up. Farming looks a lot different in Carver County than it did 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I know Commissioner Fahey talks about how few dairies there are. If you talk to a farmer today versus 10 years ago, they said, I'm going to be on here forever. And now the reality is the next generation either doesn't want a farmer, there's probably not a path for them to make a full-time living doing so. We also took about 1,000 acres out of commission when we built 212. That was an active conversation to be part of there. And so that leads to, if we want to continue to have this beautiful Carver County image of cornfields and rural living, et cetera, we are having conversations about density. And I know that some people were in the boardroom a month ago or something that we're talking about, let's revisit what density looks like. Does the Met Council have a position if the county, in partnership with cities and townships, chose to move away from a 1 per 40? Or do you kind of stay out of that and accept whatever it is that we come up with and want?
I'm going to phone a friend.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, the simple answer would be that for the townships, the community designation is agricultural, which is a 1 per 40 restriction, and that is council policy. So the position would be that they need to stay at 1 per 40.
So I know Scott County has gone to, there's different, certain areas at 1 per 10. How to connect those two dots for me?
Yeah, I think a good, my presentation went away. A good example would be, your memory might not be this good, and I don't expect it to be, but if you looked at, thank you, Laketown Township. Okay, going back. Yeah, it's the slide above the, thank you very much. There we go. So you will see there are a couple areas of that 4 per 40, 1 per 10 in Carver County, Laketown Township being the big one there. So the reason why we have that diversified rural category is those are areas in the long-term service area that are planned to develop at urban densities. In the case of Laketown Township, it's under an orderly annexation agreement between Victoria, Waconia, and I believe, thank you, that's Chaska. Yep. So what they did was out until where they have the 2040, now 2050 municipal urban services area, we have designated suburban edge to require that any development happens there, happens at the 3.5 units per acre. And then in order to allow some limited development and indicate that the long-term plan is for that to develop at urban densities, that's designated as diversified rural. Most of Scott County, to my knowledge, that's in that diversified rural is within what we would consider to be our long-term service area, and it's areas that we're planning to eventually bring into the system.
Yep.
It's also based on existing development patterns to a certain extent. So if when, we did it, we looked and we see an area of Scott County is already broken into 5 and 10 acre areas, we recognize that with either the rural residential or diversified rural community designation.
So while you're here,
Yep.
I know that Met Council probably doesn't plan to service anything west of Cologne. Cologne has said that maybe they don't want to hook up to Met Council, but I don't know if, they've gone all through all the information. But if the board wanted to, in partnership with the townships and the cities, wanted to create a zone, if you will, arbitrarily, say a half a mile north and a half a mile south of 212, obviously with the focus of trying to concentrate future growth, whether it's housing, industrial, commercial, could we put, cast that into a diversified rural within that concentrated area right around 212?
I think that'd be a very extensive discussion with environmental services relating to sewer capacity and our long-term build-out plans.
Agreed. I agree. It comes back to sewer and water capacity. And, we have, again, 11 places across the county that are bumping up against challenges in capacity. It's also not lost on me some of these cities that have made infrastructure investments of having development. And if you were to develop from here to there, it would probably take 20 years anyway. And so, you don't want to jump over somebody else that's already made the investment. But I do think it's the road to goal. It's not if, it's when. It's if this board wants to plan it or if we want to punt for the future. And then the last thing I'd say is more for the benefit of our staff and my peers is if we wanted to get aggressive on this stuff, or at least get past what we've kind of always known, it would come with a staffing piece or equation. And, Melky's team would probably need another 2 to 3 to handle some of the permits that would come our way. But there's definitely an ROI. I think that when GIS pulled it a year ago, Scott County is generating about $3.3 billion of tax revenue per mile that's coming through the main part of that corridor. If you apply that to the 16 and a half miles from Carver all the way out to Norwood, or the edge of the county rather, it's about 16 and a half miles. That's about a $50 billion potential if you used a $3.3 billion per mile hit. And so a significant amount of tax revenues when we're seeing pressures. Last question, I guess, Deb, would be for you, or maybe for you, Mackenzie, as well, is we see people under the age of 24 leaving the state faster than they have before. And I know some of it's birth rates, but some of it's affordability, some of it's tax climate, et cetera. And I think about that because we're a growth county, but are we growing as much on the residential side as we are in the non-residential? Chaska and Chanhassen have done a good job. Victoria's doing a good job of planning for that tax base. But I see a lot of our growth just being households that don't have kids. Is there anything we can do strategically to say, how do we compete for these kids? Because we know when the kids come, the parents and grandparents come as well. Is anybody doing it well? Where can we compete? We need a tax base. We don't necessarily need jobs, but we need to think about 20 years out who's going to live here. And right now, I don't want to use the word, but I'm going to use it. Dire. It seems the tax climate is dire for businesses to be here and young families to be here, and we have to compete for those. Is there anything we should be doing as we think about 2050 comp planning to address that?
I think one of the key things that you really need to be thinking about when you do that is make your comprehensive planning process, the engagement part of it, very inclusive. We all go to a lot of community meetings, and it's people maybe who are retired and have time and they're able to.
Yeah.
And so you have to have things at different times of day or different kinds of events that bring families to them. So you can start asking those questions and having those discussions of, what do you want to be? And I think it's making sure you get all those voices to the table is really the key to having that kind of a conversation, and making sure that, it's also an opportunity to showcase your county and to say, look at all these cool things that we have here. Look at this space. We've got everything from this rural area to these beautiful parks and egg areas. I mean, it's a great story to tell. And I think that's really important, but it is really, a lot of it is making sure you're talking to all the right people.
I think it was 5 years ago. I think you were on it. We did a bus tour, a tour of Carver County, and the main audience was greater MSP to talk about economic development. I remember Miss Taylor came out, and she looks at developments. She worked for Duke Energy and a bunch of other ones. And she said, number one thing I'd recommend you do is just tell your story. And maybe it's because we're just humble Minnesotans, or maybe we just don't take credit for it or whatever. But she said, you have a lot to offer. The second thing she focused in on was 212 and the economic development and impact to be there. The third thing was agritourism and tourism, because a lot of people come to Carver County for wineries, breweries, and all that other stuff. So huge opportunity. Thanks for being here.
Yep, no problem.
Mr. Chair, can I follow up back to Commissioner Erderman's comments about a growth corridor on 212, maybe for your staff? I'm sorry, I forgot his name.
Mackenzie.
Sorry, Mackenzie. Thanks for coming. So as we look at those conversations of that growth corridor, what I recall from Lake Township, obviously a lot of coordination and communication between the jurisdictions, but ultimately the authority issue that townships had to approve, the cities had to approve. We had this in our plan, so in effect we had to approve, and the Met Council had to approve. And would that be the same with a 212 growth corridor? Or if the city said, oh, hold on, wait a minute, we have our own growth area. We don't want this corridor attaching to the edge of our city and in effect attaching to the wastewater treatment line, which is critical for development. Does the city hold a trump card? Is my bottom line question.
It is under all Met Council policy that I can pull into my head at the moment, with the asterisk that I'm not environmental services, so it's possible, that I don't know everything. It is very difficult for me to envision a growth corridor that would not require coordination with municipal boundary expansion and that, because that's how the MUSA works, that's how the billing's handled, that's how service extensions work. As we mentioned with Lake Town, all of that was under an orderly annexation agreement that the township and the cities entered into. And that is how we handle the community designations. If we look at this map, you'll see areas of townships are colored suburban edge or rural centers, and that's all based on orderlies annexation agreements where the city has land use authority to plan, and then we also plan our regional system out. I don't believe there is a mechanism in place that would allow Seward expansion into townships without the townships being part of the incorporated community surrounding
And the city.
the city, yes.
And the city. Right. Thank you. Yeah.
And I would say as part of the review of the comp plans too, adjacent communities review so that everything is kind of connecting. That's part of the beauty of that. So, you know, it would take a lot of collaboration to do something like that. And it's an opportunity, again, with the comp plan process to do that. I will say, like, if you look over, 169 has been used as the example, you know, you've got Shakopee, then there's townships, and then there's Jordan. There's still that sort of structure because there is a regional wastewater all the way along the corridor yet. So Jordan's actually got its own wastewater treatment plant. And so it's getting closer, but it's not there yet. So if that's the sort of thing you're moving towards, it's important to get that kind of information into the comp plan. Because the way we use this data is we look at it and say, okay, they're going to grow in this direction, then we can plan to build out the regional wastewater structures to accommodate that growth. And that's why our wastewater system is so efficient. It's very cost effective and it's easier for cities and communities to connect to it because we built out the big infrastructure to where so that the local entities can connect in their communities.
Deb, how's By the Yard connected? By the Yard down 169, how are they?
I don't know off the hand. I'd have to.
Because I think that was born out of a resident maybe of the township and would never happen unless she was a resident, and I don't think they're on stuff. So I look at this and I look at, Cologne and Norwood probably will figure out a way to, produce their joint water capacity. You've got the oddball of Bongards that for years and years has done their own service and system, and they can do so. So the question is how far will Met Council and how fast will it come from east? And so there is a scenario where City of Carver could orderly annex halfway to Cologne. Cologne could orderly annex is halfway down to and meet Carver, and they can plan their own stuff. Cologne going west, Norwood going east, et cetera. Like you could see that. In the absence of that, it falls to the townships. And there are some paths. I just use By the Yard as an example of where they haven't hooked up to major capacity. They've serviced themselves through well or septic or whatever it is. And so, we have to figure out how to dream something that hasn't been that way for however many years. Now we have $300 million in investment in 212, and here we are. So
that's why you do all this comp planning.
That's right. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, can't help myself here. Can I go back to greenhouse gas?
Surely.
That touched a nerve, mainly because of the challenges we face with future road construction. You know the story, right?
I do.
I think we've landed in a pretty good place, at least for the immediate future. But I'm not educated enough on what this comp plan will require. Even generally, do we see significant additional investments we're going to have to make to meet whatever requirements are being imposed?
So as I understand it, and Mackenzie can correct me if I'm wrong, things like greenhouse gases and climate and the natural system, that stuff was brought into requirements into the comp plan processing by the legislature. So like the last cycle, climate was an optional section. Probably about half the communities did something. This time it's required. That's why, because it is so complicated, that is why the toolkit, like the tool that, and Mackenzie can come out and show like your planning staff or even all of you guys, where you can put information in and what can impact what. So you can keep everything as is and what is it going to be, or you can change levels of things and what those impacts could be. Nothing else is really a great opportunity is a workshop to be able to see if there are things that can impact it. So I don't know if you want to expand on it.
But Mackenzie, I was looking for more about whatever's required. Do you think we're going to meet those requirements, or are we going to have to do additional, relatively major things?
Yeah, so I guess I was just gonna read the relevant minimum requirement that I think you're getting at and then use that to expound. So, you have to have the inventory. That's the toolkit that I just showed. So that's something we're handing you. And then the requirement is to include one strategy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions for each of the above sectors. That's a strategy the county picks, comprehensive planning is planning. It's a good faith effort. There's no penalty tied to it. There's no minimum. There's no portion in either the state law or in Metro Council policy that says you have to reduce your ag emissions by 7.3%, right? The county looks at what you feel is viable, what you feel aligns with your vision and values, that'll move the needle a little bit, you believe, you put that in as your strategy, you run it through the scenario calculator, that's the requirement. There is no requirement that you commit large funds to it, that you pick strategies that are going to be burdensome on resources. It's looking at what's viable for you to do, what makes sense given what's under your control. And as long as you have one strategy for each sector, that meets the requirement of the comprehensive plan.
Very good.
And that's part of the reason we built tools, so that, because it's new, and we're trying to make it easier for communities, especially some of the smaller communities are going to need those kinds of resources.
Deb and Mackenzie, just a general question on just looking back, and because you've talked a lot about the policies and the vision, and for me, orderly annexation, I think, has been a key role in all the development that's taken place. I'm just going to talk about Carver County. And there's probably a few members on this board and in this room that remember that Highway 212 used to go past the Lions Tap and up past Flying Cloud Airport. And I can remember when 212 was built through Eden Prairie and all that development, and then what took place after that. But that orderly annexation agreement that Chanhassen had with Chanhassen Township, that Chaska had with Chaska Township, and those townships are no longer in existence. So can you talk about that on how that's worked in the past versus, maybe leapfrogging? And you talked about the capacity, and the sewer capacity is so critical, and the environmental, and I understand that completely. But it has worked, and it's worked tremendously in Carver County. Can you talk about that?
I will start, and then I'll hand it to Mackenzie. We try to avoid leapfrogging. That's hard. Like when you think of the big infrastructure pieces, that's where some of the systems across the country get expensive and complicated and don't need to. We become a partner in convening entities when we were talking about orderly annexation. So we bring people like from our planning staff, people from our environmental services, so everyone can be at the table and talk and have access to the resources. But, so I think we're a partner in some of those discussions, but I don't know that it's necessarily our role to lead them. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a planner by profession. I work for a regional planning organization. I think, as you mentioned from your examples, we get the best planning outcomes when development is planned, controlled, systematic, and the legal mechanism to do that in the state of Minnesota between a city and a township, in my opinion, is an orderly annexation agreement. That being said, the Metropolitan Council doesn't have any direct authority in this matter. It's something that we encourage, we convene, as was mentioned, we have people, when they do the comprehensive plan, put it out for comment to make sure that adjacent jurisdictions can talk into. But agreements require two parties that both believe it's in their best interest. And sometimes it can be hard for them to find that common ground and enter into an agreement that they feel meets both their needs. And when that happens, that's a local decision, and we, of course, respect that. So I think it's a great practice when it happens, and I think there have been really positive results when it has happened.
Thank you.
I got a hodgepodge. The CFO of Bongards was standing right there. He just popped in and talked about the county maybe being able to access bonds to help them with wastewater, the MPCA, I don't know if it's a rule, statute, nitrate reduction. He stated the water coming out of the ground has nitrates higher than what needs to be at the finish. But we also asked him, well, have you gone to Cologne, Norwood Young America, maybe run a pipe down 212? Yeah, no, they're not going to do that. So I guess that's just food for thought more about a critique of, and back to the greenhouse gases and everything else. Sometimes these things are not reasonable. And let's keep an eye on that. The 201 system in Lake Town, they want $3 million from us. We're possibly the missing link. And if a bonding bill doesn't happen, maybe we're not the missing link because the state contribution bonding might be in that bill for them. So now I'm praying for not to have a bonding bill. But this stuff is all on the edge of the system. Certainly the Lake Bavaria east side of Lake Town problem, it's 3 problems. Victoria on the more north side, Chaska on the east for certain. Waconia is not in this. Waconia is in the system.
discussion too, yeah.
I swear on my life that as soon as the taxpayers of Carver, if the taxpayers of Carver County chipped in $3 million and this was all done, the development would all happen and the annexation might happen. None of the cities want, even though it's right there on the edge, maybe Victoria a little farther. Doesn't it seem like the Met Council, probably the cities who are going to annex these places, should be taking care of that? In other words, if my stub pipe in Chanhassen goes out, what is the responsibility of Lake Town residents to fix my stub pipe or pay to fix my stub pipe? And so we're really struggling with where the taxpayers from the rest of the county should participate. It seems like a more omnipotent organization like the Met Council.
Well, we are not completely omnipotent. So I think part of that is we don't fit. Like, we've been out and tried to talk, or we have come out and met with the township board. We've had the cities out and trying to find a way to navigate it as well. We've got other communities, 201 systems, and it's going to become a long-term problem, but there are limits to our authority. And so at this point, we haven't been able to find a solution that we can apply until one of the cities first annexes areas in the township.
I know we're asking environmental services questions, and they're the ones that seem to be bothering us. But listen, if you could just leave a check for $3 million, I don't know that you have to do much more. I mean, so.
What?
Just gonna stand. No checkbook today, sorry.
Good thing. I think that's all I've got. I know Commissioner Uterman's got the road of gold, and I think we keep getting the data, and I think we've talked about it for a long time, that running a sewer pipe from here to McLeod County to develop out 212 in a flash so that we can grow ourselves into tax revenues and other things is a very complicated, if not impossible, proposition. I don't know where it's been done. I know 169, Shakopee's a huge place, and so a lot of that corridor is Shakopee. But I don't believe the city of Carver, Cologne, nor Young America, the townships in between, have any plan, nor the Met Council, that thus to expand Mucilines or do other down 212. We spend a lot of time talking about it. My 40 years of experience tell me it's not a possibility. I always want to dream, but sewer pipe isn't easy to come by. And expanding all of that, and Commissioner Fahey uses the term leapfrog. Maybe urban sprawl is in there somewhere too, but it does not appear as though that is a possibility.
It's just not efficient development to leapfrog like that. I mean, that is one of the goals of what the statutes originally were for land use planning and the wastewater system and all of that was to prevent some of that from happening, because we want to be more efficient with our resources. And it actually does work. We have some of the lowest wastewater rates in the country, because we have done that, and so it does matter. For like the long-term vision out of Highway 212, if you look at Highway 169, they just finished the commission that they had for the long-term planning. They just, within the last couple of months, few months, they kind of wrapped that up. And because the last stoplight on 169 is coming out now, like it's something that was started and finished. It's kind of ongoing, and I think that that's what you have to look at with 212. And you do it in steps, and you do it both along the corridor, and you do it with the individual cities, and you have those conversations, because even along the corridor, the different cities probably want different things, and that's what they recognized with the 169 corridor, and that's why they set up a group just to really advocate for that along the way, because like I said, I mean, the last big stoplight right now is actually coming out, which has been a long time. Jordan, yeah, it's been a long time coming.
A lot of tears at that intersection.
Yes, exactly. Very dangerous intersection. And it took a lot of time to be able to get the money pulled together for it.
Okay,
Do we want to talk about Southwest while that's here?
sure.
I mean, we had an opportunity to talk.
Can we, if it's not on the agenda?
I preferably stick to the agenda, but, I think it's a little bit related to the comp plan with.
I'm just asking a
planning for
question.
Transit.
Look
and-
how comp plan adjacent.
Yeah, I think
Fine.
it's reasonably safe ground, but definitely an important topic.
Yes.
So we're investing, I think, $170,000 of tax money to do a transportation study. And I know that there's reality, there's rumor, there's votes, and there's other things. And we have our beloved Southwest Transit. I think at least one of our board members is there to testify. Should we continue down the path of pursuing that regional transportation mobility study and survey and solutions, or should we pause until we see the dust settle?
I can tell you my opinion, which is not necessarily my council opinion. So, because we don't know what's going to happen with the legislation. I've talked to several of you independently. It's not legislation that was proposed by Metropolitan Council or by the administration. We're responding and providing answers to questions when we're asked to. I would, from your district representative, I would recommend you continue with your transit study. I mean, it's still, regardless of who a provider is or what it looks like, there's regional sales tax dollars that can go out for transit. The more you know where you need to put that investment and all of that, or work with us as to where we put investment, I think it's actually critical that keep doing that. There's nothing in the legislation as I see it that says these areas won't be served. I mean, it's just, and I don't know that it'll happen. Like, there's a lot of steps in the legislature, as your chair as well knows, it can or may not, or who knows? We don't know really where it's at. It's still got some committees to live through, so I don't know what the likelihood is. But I would still continue with your transit study.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was to be on its way yesterday to Ways and Means, and I do not believe Chairman Torkelson is interested in hearing the bill.
I looked this morning, and it is not on the agenda for the week that I see so far.
And the legislation basically says, well, we won't really change you for a year, I think. which means after a year, they would start monkeying around. And as I said, as I've told people, the Met Council has a light rail train starting up fairly soon, the Southwest Light Rail, that they're going to need to buttress, and they would hope to modify our transit out here to better, I mean, it's what they do. It changes bus routes. When you got an open light rail line costing $3 billion, they want it full. And so if you notice that bill, it really criticizes, or at least the testimony criticizes the long runs. Carver County, Southwest Transit has the longest runs. And so those can cost a lot of money. Well, let's get rid of those and put people on light rail, and then they'll have 13 more stops to downtown. So that would definitely be a change. So, but I think the bill is going to have a hard time. So, any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you so much for committing 3 hours to us, Deb. We really appreciate it.
Okay. To continue this discussion, thank you, Representative Barber and McKenzie, for giving some background here. I think the purpose of staff in this work session today was to not only provide that background, but to let you know what the next steps are, particularly in 2026, as we kind of embark on the next steps of the comp plan here. I'll speed through this a little bit. I did want to show this slide again, just the history of comprehensive planning and the setting up the policy that the county's had for almost 50 years with, really focusing on that difference between growth in the cities and maintaining that agricultural character. That essentially has been the foundation for planning here since the 1970s. Those first one per 40 zoning ordinance policies were adopted in the 70s and continued on through this time. So getting in 2026, we talked about input, and that's kind of what we're focused on this year. We're going to try and do a lot of different ways of collecting input from across the county, particularly with cities and townships. The county being the land use authority for the townships, that makes up a big part of how we're collecting input, what those township supervisors and residents think and feel about where we should be moving forward. But I don't want to forget about all the other opportunities we're looking at here with the residential surveys, online feedback tools, open houses, pop-up events, and looking at a lot of different ways to collect input from a wide variety of folks.
Are you going to be at the fair?
We will be at the fair.
There we go.
Emphasizing this collaboration between the townships and the county. The townships did their agreements with the county and townships dating back to the 70s that give the county land use authority for those areas. In the comprehensive plan, there are township chapters that cover those individual townships. These provide background information, but essentially give the planning policies mostly around land use, but also touch on water resources, parks, open space and trails, and transportation within those chapters. Again, the fundamental countywide land use policy is that most urban development should occur within cities. The township should remain rural in character with agriculture as the principal land use as those cities grow. Policies in the township chapters further refine some density choices with that 1 per 40 and some other commercial options. So this is what we want to talk to townships about as we start to go out in the next month and meet with them. Here's kind of the main topics, and this is what we're looking for feedback from the board today. We're going to go through those residential density options. As you know, there's 4 choices right now. Those are the high amenity, the straight 1 per 40, the high amenity, wooded lot, conservation incentive. We're going to ask about the choice townships have for transfer of building eligibilities. Some of those have those adopted, others don't. We're talking about economic development. Some of the townships have rural service districts. Just kind of check in with them about potential expansion of those existing rural service districts. Potentially ask the question, is there new rural service districts that the townships want to consider? I think it's worth asking the question about these economic development opportunity areas. Those were in the 2030 comprehensive plan, if you remember. They were never refined beyond that, and then when we adopted the 2040 plan, they were removed. These were primarily around the Twin Cities Western Rail Line in Benton and Young America townships, looking at potential economic development around the development of that railroad. So I think it's worth asking, particularly those townships, if that's something they're interested in pursuing again. And then are there changes to currently allowed activities, commercial activities, contractors' yards, et cetera? You heard some of that a couple weeks ago. We will talk about some other topics with the townships. You know, there's choices out there, whether they want to allow golf courses, shooting ranges, more restrictive feedlot requirements in some of the townships. And then some of the other topics you've heard about, solar being one of those. And then we will touch on any particular transportation or parks and trails unique issues that affect each township. You know, some of the Baylor Park's a good example where, you know, only one township has a regional park like that. Are there any additional issues the township wants to touch on with these? I want to emphasize that we are coordinating with the other county departments, working with, you know, there are other components of this of the comp plan, including transportation, parks and trails. So we are working with Public Works on the transportation piece, with Parks on their Parks chapter, land management with Jason Milkey, and incorporating the elements of the water management plan as well, because that is a piece of the comp plan requirement, the work that we do as the WMO. Quarterly meetings with all these departments, and we'll start working on that public input piece with these other departments as well. So we're collecting not only input on land use, but these other elements. Mackenzie mentioned the Met Council grant. We have that available to us. In addition, we have almost $40,000 in our current planning water management budget. Those expenditures, we're looking at likely hiring some professional service assistants for that public input piece to try and enhance that and make that as robust as possible. And then working with Linden and park staff to potentially have some of those dollars get expended on the requirements for transportation, parks and trails planning. So next steps, we are going to meet with townships starting in May. We've developed a draft schedule that we will share with the commissioners as well. I believe starting the first week of May, meeting with the townships. We're going to start finalizing the other opportunities for input, again, looking at potentially hiring some professional service help for that. And then finalizing the more detailed work plans for the transportation, parks and trails piece. With that, board, I'll take questions on the process. And again, looking at some of the input for those township issues we're going to be talking about.
Good job. Paul? All right, any questions? You are going to share the township meetings with us?
Yep, we'll share that schedule
At
out.
their regular meetings, or?
It'll be at their regular meetings. You know, they're all night meetings with the exception of Lake Town. So they have an afternoon meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, good job, Paul, and definitely here to help you if you need any help with discussions or to hear the feedback and the connection with the townships and cities in my district for sure.
Commissioner Anderson.
All right, Chair Workman, thank you, Paul. And Met Council Deb, and thank you so much for being here. This is a really critical piece as we go forward. Paul, I just wanted to ask, when we talked about getting more people involved, I think local control and hearing all the voices of our residents is going to be really important. So I love the comprehensive plan the inclusive plan you have for getting feedback. Is there anything that you would change or tweak to ensure that we get the voices of some of those younger families based upon what Councilman what is there Councilman Barber mentioned? Is there anything that we can do to ensure that we get that voice?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Anderson, I think that's one of the things we want to try and do is get, go back to this input slide here.
Yeah, all the way back. Thank you.
You know, working with Kristen Larson, I wanted to point out county planner in the room, having myself and Kristen work with potentially a consultant that does a lot of this public input feedback, trying to get some different ideas. Last time around, we did kind of pivot to more social media. Is it the tool called Social Pinpoint, which is a good input tool for people to engage online and provide it that way. But I know there's other opportunities as well. The pop-up events have been successful in other things we've done in water management, so we do want to emphasize that. I think you heard from City of Chaska that, you know, they're very successful at some of those.
Yes, they are.
things.
Yes.
So working with the cities as well is very key, because they're going to be doing some of these when they're developing their plans as well, and, you know, why not coordinate with them at the same time? I know certain things get people's attention a little bit more. Roads is a good example. So when we're looking for feedback on transportation needs, it's a good opportunity to piggyback on that and ask some other questions too. So I think it's a whole host of things, but I don't think it's, you know, we haven't finalized all that yet, and certainly open to other ideas.
Thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Anybody else? Hearing none. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, and we'll be back probably, you know, later in the year to provide updates that we heard from the townships.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, anybody have anything else that wants to go off the agenda here? It was a joke, Mr. Attorney. Gee. All right, we are adjourned.
Yeah, thanks. Did you get all your vacation planning done?
What?